to be violence. Of course, unilaterally, everyone agrees that Luigi Mangione gunning down Brian Thompson in the streets is a violent act. But also, denying a cancer patient chemotherapy is also violence. If you want to talk about a threat to national security, it's not a fucking college kid who's protesting against a genocide. It's literally leaving our nuclear stockpiles unmanned and down so that we are vulnerable to attack from other countries. That's a fucking threat to national security. But of course, it was never about national security. It was about deporting people who we don't agree with. Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hope you all have been enjoying the content that I've been putting out. It's been really interesting seeing people's reactions over on Instagram and TikTok, as well as here on YouTube to my previous reaction videos. There seemed to be a demonstrated interest in me responding to other videos of Jubilee and others that I wasn't directly a part of. So I just thought this was an interesting one. I really liked this format because it was much more, it was much less people. With the middle ground that I was a part of with like 50 total people, you just don't get to hear from everyone, and it's a lot of people talking over each other, a lot of people jockeying to be the one who gets to speak. And I think that this style where they had 4 people with different beliefs to come together and have a discussion was at least a bit more fruitful. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing I'm looking forward to commenting on it. Just for full disclosure, I have watched through it just once. I've not extensively prepared, though I've milled over it since I watched it when it came out. So this is not a blind reaction. I just want to be completely upfront. But I also have not meticulously gone through and brought up a bunch of statistics and data points, though I will provide those if I feel it is relevant and helpful. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely put timestamps in the description below, so you should be able to skip around if one of these prompts is most interesting and if you want to listen to it. And as always, I'll also link the original video down there in case you just want to give that a watch. I would assume you're watching this for my commentary, but in case you find me and my commentary and my pausing to be annoying, probably on the wrong video. But if that's the case, feel free to check that out. I will leave a link to that original video down below. But other than that, let's get started. And I'm looking forward to commenting on this video and sharing my thoughts with you all. So here we go. Let's move this over here, and let's see. Let's make this full screen if it decides it wants to cooperate. All right. And let's drag this down. All right, dragging myself down here. Hopefully this is good. And let's get this going.
When you say that Luigi Mangione shouldn't be able to unilaterally kill anybody, people on the other side, I don't know if I agree with this, they'd say that Brian Thompson, the CEO, was making the decision to kill people with his healthcare company.
I mean, I think that Brian Thompson arguably should have been tried. I think that, again, going back to due process, Brian Thompson was denied his right to due process. Do I think that he was, somewhat responsible for the deaths of 400,000 people? Probably. Yeah. Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this one. This is an interesting conversation, so I think there'll be a lot of interesting things to discuss. And I like the format. I like the format a lot.
My name is Adam, and I am a liberal.
My name is Luke, and I'm a conservative.
My name's Naima, and I'm a leftist.
My name's Chandler, and I'm MAGA.
This article says, recession fears and Elon Musk batter Trump's approval rating. Is Trump causing a recession? 3, 2, 1.
Predictable. Okay.
I'll jump in. I don't think that we're in a recession, but I think Trump's erratic and unpredictable economic behavior is damaging the economy. You can see it in multiple indicators. The S&P 500 was down 10% this week. The Atlanta Federal Reserve said the GDP is going to contract in Q1, and you can draw a direct line between Trump's flip-flopping on tariffs and the stock market crashing, because we can all agree, businesses thrive in a predictable environment. You need to know how many resources to allocate where, at what time. And when Trump is creating such an unpredictable economic environment, yeah, it's going to hurt the stock market. Yeah, CEOs are going to come out and say, this is not good.
One thing about the stock market is a gauge at what we call micro horizon of where the economy is going to be in a short-term gain. Trump's approach to the economy is, instead of using the word recession, I use the word detox. He's trying to reset this economy of terrible 4 years that we've gone through, and his stance on tariffs goes back to that long-term game. He wants to have a medium to long-term gain for the average American. He's not focused on making our next 2 to 6 months great. He wants
I'm
the
sure.
next 3, 4, 5, 10 years to be great. And I think setting up tariffs like that, it is going to be a situation where it is a detox. It's probably going to get a little worse before it gets better because he has a lot that he has to reset.
When Trump announced his tariffs, the auto industry.
Sure, I want to comment on this first because this is kind of a thread that I remember briefly through the video. It's this kind of goalpost shifting that we see from conservatives all the time. No, you don't understand. Trump is this mastermind. He knows what he's doing. Even if, every single marker, as Adam laid out, suggests that we are currently in a recession, or not in a recession, but we're headed towards a recession. And, all the major, businesses are coming out against it. And it's just every single metric basically is showing that this is to the detriment of our economy and to the American people. These conservatives will pull out this, unfalsifiable claim that, Trump's working in the long term. Just wait, just wait. Things are going to get better. Trump never wanted to make things perfect on day one, despite many of his promises being, we're going to bring down the cost of groceries and things like that on day one. We're talking about a little bit, I'm going to end the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia on day one. He talks like that on the campaign trail, but suddenly, as soon as he gets in office, and obviously he can't unilaterally change the entire economy or end global conflict in a single day or in a short period of time, suddenly these conservatives love to, and his supporters love to shift the goalpost. It was never about that. It was never about ending it that quickly. We just have to trust him. We have to trust his gut instincts. And I just think it's utter BS. It's the same argument that people who can't explain the existence of God make. This might be, indulge me on this tangent. It's this whole idea of God works in mysterious ways. We might not understand his reasons for something, but we just have to trust that that he knows what's right. And it's a similar type of sentiment that's going right now. It's like, no, Trump understands tariffs. When I bet if you really asked Trump and pressed him, he wouldn't really actually be able to tell you what a tariff is. I genuinely believe that. I don't think that Trump has a strong grasp on anything policy-wise. I don't think Trump has spoken coherently. Find me a clip of Trump speaking coherently on any policy issue of any substance for like 15 seconds without like rambling and talking in generalities and beating around the bush. So I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but like this argument is just exhausting. You know what I mean? This idea that we just have to give Trump the benefit of the doubt, despite the fact that we saw the long-term effects of his 4 years, his mismanagement of COVID that led to hurting our economy even more by not taking the proper measures. So I don't want to look. I'm hitting on a lot here, so I don't want to go on too much of a tangent. So stick with me. I'm definitely gonna try to respond more to this video, but that just really irked me, and I kind of wanted to get at that right from the start.
The big three in the auto industry had been very much against Trump's tariffs, just because a lot of the suppliers of the materials that are used in the auto industry and in American manufacturing are sourced from Mexico, and there are no American suppliers of those things. So when Trump first announced his tariffs on Mexico, the Dow dropped by 1,300 points. So how do you reconcile that as not being the direct cause of what could potentially become a financial recession?
Well, I think the reason that we see this is that for decades now, we've been exporting manufacturing, exporting these various goods to other countries instead of performing these actions within our own country, so much so that companies have gotten used to the affordability of it and the ease of access of it, of saying, oh, hey, we don't have to spend all this money to do it in America when we can do it somewhere else, because we had so many states and our country as a whole where it was difficult to do business. It was expensive to do business. Now, with Trump potentially levying these tariffs, and the great thing I say is potentially is that so many of these tariffs are more so bargaining chips, and they haven't really been placed in most places yet against Canada or Mexico that have actually resulted in these tariffs being charged. For instance, we saw it with Canada. Canada actually, in various places, and not in every place, but with certain tariffs, particularly with energy between Ontario and America, they actually reduced their tariffs. And certainly there's going to be some back and forth going on, and the new Canadian Prime Minister.
How does that make any sense? First off, that's not what happened. Trump levied tariffs against Canada, and Canada responded like many countries did with retaliatory tariffs, which just made everything more expensive, having import and export tariffs. So I don't really know what Chandler's saying. He's saying a lot, but he's not getting very specific on it. So if we're talking specifically like about tariffs and manufacturing and jobs, the reality is when you levy a tariff, we're not charging the country that's sending the stuff in, or we're not charging that. It's charged to the company that's making the purchase. And what happens when we are charging companies more? They pass off that cost to the consumer, which leads to prices going up. So this idea that tariffs inherently are going to protect consumers is just not the case. I'm forgetting exactly. He made another point, and maybe I'll be reminded of it in a second.
You might say, oh, hey, well, we want a 90% tariff on this. Trump's saying, okay, well, we're going to match that tariff rise. This is kind of a back and forth trade.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say. He's basically saying that these tariffs are bargaining chips. This idea that, oh, it's not really going to happen. First off, he's already implemented some of these tariffs, and it's been disastrous. The second part of it is, as Adam pointed out earlier, you can still have negative effects on the economy by making threats, by using tariffs as a bargaining chip, because tariffs make things inherently very unstable. And if tariffs are constantly changing, businesses cannot create an environment where they know the long-term strategy that they're going to employ. They can't plan for tariffs, and they can't build that into their economic models if they don't know what the tariffs are going to be. So as Adam pointed out, this is creating a type of instability that is sending the stock market going up and down and up and down. A lot of people are saying oh, look, the Dow has rebounded, it's all back. That's not the sign of a good thing. I mean, it's we're also not gaining everything back in terms of the stock market. If you look, Andrew Yang had an interesting tweet about this, is like, if you have, $100 and you lose 10% of that, you're down. If you see a 10% loss, you're down to $90. If you then see a 10% gain, you've actually lost money because you're back to $99. So what we're seeing is these gains back, even if they're the gains of the same percentage, are still losses, net losses, because the amount that we drop to is obviously lower than the original amount, which means the percentage gain is lower. So I think this thing in general, this idea that Trump is some economic genius with these tariffs, he's not. We see him talk about these tariffs and then just bluff on them as soon as he realizes that they're not going to have the intended effect. So I don't know. This is just a moot point. I don't think Trump. I know that Trump is not some mastermind that, as Luke would want you to believe, has some long-term vision of how he's going to fix the American economy. Well, things might get bad now, but yeah. And what was the question here? Wasn't it something like, is Trump causing the recession? Even if Luke were to believe that this was some long-term strategy that Trump had to lift the U.S. up, but it's going to, cause some economic pain now, that would be causing a recession. So Luke isn't even, at least what he said, he isn't even committed to his own claim. Otherwise, he would apparently agree with the prompt. So is it the case, Luke, that currently Trump is causing a recession or is likely to cause a recession? But that's a good thing, because there's going to be this unforeseen benefits that haven't been articulated but just obviously exist and we should believe in. So this whole thing is just BS. But let's hear what Chandler has to say.
Or a trade negotiation that we've seen from Trump in his first term, and I imagine we'll see it throughout the rest of this term, as he works to, as Luke very aptly said, detox what has been the last 4 years of pain for our economy. And you might see a little bit of stock market shifting, but you kind of always see that. I mean,
not shifting.
Not to the level we saw. I mean, I don't want to Naima, I don't want to say her name wrong. As I think Naima said before, we saw the Dow drop by over 13,000 points. So that's huge. Are you kidding me?
It's going down.
It's going down a
that's
lot.
not a shift.
Yeah, and
but we're talking about the stock market, but we aren't talking about things that actually affect most people, like the consumer price index, inflation, more indexes of egg prices, gas prices.
All of those are going up. Inflation is going up. The consumer price index is not something that's affected immediately. The consumer price index is something that's done semi-annually to annually. So of course the consumer price index can't capitalize on something that is only the case when Trump's been in office for 3 months. You're using a metric that just has not been evaluated based on what has happened with Trump. So whatever.
These things are going back down, and the inflation is going down.
No, they're not.
They are.
No.
Egg prices have skyrocketed since Trump took office.
So the last time you bought eggs.
You're right.
Here's the thing.
Can I say really quickly? You're right that the stock market is just one indicator, but the idea that Trump is doing this purely to reshore manufacturing is not even backed up by Trump. Trump has played these weird tariff games where he says, I want less fentanyl at the border. And then after there's less fentanyl, he completely switches his stance. He has no coherent goal with them.
Because he achieved what he was trying to get.
At the same time, so if he achieved what he's trying to get, why did he replace the tariffs on Canada? That's entirely
so he's talking about something completely different there, and that's the exact point you're making. For instance, the original tariffs we were going to place on Mexico and Canada was about fentanyl and was about illegal immigration.
They clearly weren't, because Trump then replaced tariffs.
Actually, they were, because right after he placed those, or was planning to place them, the Mexican president announced, oh, we're going to be placing soldiers at the border.
This is an entirely terrible talking point for a few reasons. Number one, all of the concessions that Trump got from Sheinbaum and Trudeau had already been conceded months prior. That $1.3 billion bill that Trudeau introduced had been introduced in December of 2024. You can look this up on the Canadian website. The same thing with Sheinbaum. Actually, Biden got 15,000 troops to the border in his first year. And I just want to say that if Trump is trying to reshore manufacturing, the strategy that you take is leaving a grace period. Doesn't it take 6 months to a year for American companies to build these manufacturing plants, to hire workers?
It's true.
If he's actually trying to reshore manufacturing, as you claim, leave a grace period. And also, you said that Trump isn't being unpredictable. It's more about consistency. Would you call Trump's tariffs thus far consistent?
I didn't say he's being, I didn't say anything related to him. I just said most businesses would thrive with consistency.
So let me rephrase.
Correct.
Do you think that Trump has created an environment that's consistent for businesses to thrive?
For short term, no, because he's looking at a long-term goal.
Well,
and
what
you
is
guys,
the long-term
I mean, I wanted to touch.
Thank you. What is the
I'm
long-term
focused
goal?
more on recession, relating that back towards the
Can I
United
ask one question really quickly?
When I'm done, yeah. So bringing it back towards the United States economy, you guys were talking about egg prices skyrocketing. Egg prices have gone down to, I think, $6.85 a dozen, which is $1.20 less than what they were a few months
Where?
ago.
Down from what, though?
Wait, where?
Yeah, so
it's
actually,
the national average right now.
What
Same thing
was the
with-
national average at when Trump took office and over the past
But
month?
see, I'm not looking at we can blame him
so
for
the
this. I'm
national
looking
average
at where
when
we're
Trump
at
took
right
office
now.
was about $6.50. Now they're actually down to $5.50 in just about a few weeks. And the reason we saw the egg prices go up, and I don't know how far we want to get into this, was because we had the H5N1 virus that started in 2022, and the Biden administration did next to nothing about that. On top of all the various other squeezing and regulations that were hitting farmers, these chickens had no choice but to catch the virus and then get killed.
Chickens had no choice but to catch the virus and be killed. It's a funny way to say it, but all right.
58 million chickens have died, thus causing a sort of supply and demand issue where, hey, everybody wants eggs. Oh my God, there's no chickens left to make the eggs. We have these chickens finally starting to get hatched and finally starting to be of age where they can produce eggs again. That's what's going to cause those prices to go down.
So if we know that they're
So first off, even if everything that Chandler is saying is correct, which frankly I'm going to be completely honest, I just don't know that much about the global supply of chickens right now. That's not on my highest priority list in terms of memorization of stats. But what I will say is, even if that's the case, and this is simply a supply and demand issue, then Trump's just fucking lying. Because what he said was that egg prices will go down on day one. He said the price of groceries will go down on day one. He was making promises that fundamentally were impossible for him to keep. The president, and frankly he knows this, can't unilaterally change the entire economy in general, but especially in the terms of like a few days. So if it's the case that, of course, as Chandler's saying, there's so many complex factors that play into the economy and how things are affected, then of course Trump can't do anything about that. So then you would have to admit that either Trump has no idea how the economy works because he's claiming he alone can fix it on day one, or he knows that, but he's counting on the ignorance of his supporters and him being able to get away with a blatant lie that he's going to solve it. So, Chandler, which one is it? That's all I would say.
is a flu that is affecting the amount that okay. So if we know that there was a flu that is affecting the amount of eggs that chickens can produce, why would you place tariffs on a huge manufacturer of our resources in terms of food?
To reshore manufacturing, bro.
Like, that doesn't make sense. If there's already an issue in which we have less eggs, why would you put more taxes on eggs?
Because our priority is America, and our priority is the
But if your
American
priority is
people.
America and there's an issue with supply, why would you make it
Also,
harder to get that supply?
Does it not bother you guys that Trump's main promise was to lower prices on day one, and both of you guys just gave the argument that, hey, maybe in 6 to 12 months after some economic pain that Trump and Elon Musk are completely insulated from, by the way, wasn't Trump's promise to lower prices on day one?
Well, prices are lower. I mean, the price of gas is
literally
at the
are lower.
lowest since 2021.
The Target CEO just came out and said that prices are going to have to go up. Even Tesla just wrote a letter to the Trump administration saying, dude, Our cars are going to be hurt if you actually tariff Canada for no reason.
Trump just republished an op-ed called "Shut Up About Egg Prices." Like,
literally,
what are we talking about?
Yeah,
but we're seeing prices are going down. The price of gas is the lowest since 2021. And we're also seeing the CPI this past month was 0.2%, which was substantial.
Wait, hold on. So the price of gas is the lowest it's been since 2021. First off, you'd have to point to a Trump policy that lowered the price of gas. For example, Biden opened up a bunch of offshore drilling. Biden, for all the Trump supporters who seem to be, thinking that Biden's this some like green energy fanatic, he was one of the most like pro natural or fossil fuel presidents there was in terms of fracking, in terms of extracting fossil fuels. So the reality is it is correct that we have seen gas prices continue to drop since 2021. But you can't just say that because they've continued to drop now, right now, that's because of Trump. The large reason gas prices are getting lower is because we're coming out of a pandemic. We're coming out of when there was a lower supply and lower demand. We saw gas prices initially go up because there was a lower supply, because supply chains have been halted due to the pandemic. And then we saw demand go up, so then prices go up. But as the supply chain is now catching up, prices are coming down. And they have been coming down since around, 2022 or something like that is when they peaked. So you can't just say that just because we have low prices now, that it's the result of a particular president. And I don't think it's fair to necessarily blame Trump for high prices. And I don't think that's what they're doing. They're just using Trump's own words against him. Trump was saying that he will lower prices. If Trump never made claims about how he's going to unilaterally fix the economy, then we wouldn't be holding him to his ridiculous unilateral promises. So that's just the way it is. But of course, Trump has no understanding of economic policy. Trump doesn't know how this shit works. He just speaks in large generalities and frankly just acts like he's going to do things by a sheer power of will. And when it doesn't happen, he denies he ever says it, or shifts the goalpost to mean something completely different and hopes no one notices or holds him accountable. And to this point, no one really has held him accountable. So that's what I think is largely the issue here is we're not really pinning down policies. We're just pinning down results. And the reality is, and as the Trump supporters are like, I don't know why they don't call Luke is Luke a Trump? Luke clearly is a Trump supporter. I would like to know what's the difference between Chandler and Luke in terms of like MAGA and conservative. Regardless, that's beside the point. As they are both saying, and as they are both now so clearly able to articulate, the economy has so many factors that play into it, and so many different things that affect things that it's just unfair to blame Trump for these prices because of things like the H1N1, things like the stock market, things like supply and demand, all these different things. Where was this energy the past 4 years when every single conservative was blaming Biden solely for inflation? Despite the fact that we were coming out of a pandemic, despite the fact that supply chains, as I talked about, were almost halted due to that pandemic. And then we saw demand go up and supply chain had to catch up. So that's going to drive prices up and that's going to drive inflation up. And then inflation started to go down. But they kept just blaming Biden, as Biden unilaterally controls this. But now suddenly they've gained this, newfound knowledge of how the economy works once we start using that same logic to blame Trump. So it comes down in no way to logical consistency at all. It's just completely ideological. Trump good. When Trump lowers prices, it's Trump did something well. But when prices go up under Trump, well, you don't understand. The economy is so complicated. And the reverse way with Biden. So, it's just BS.
Potentially lower than what it was estimated, and we even see liberal networks like CNN speaking out how the economy is getting better.
Again,
if you have a progressive channel like that, then that means things must actually be getting better.
I'm going to take the position, and you guys aren't going to like this. Biden handed the economy to Trump on a silver platter. If you look at any of these,
shattered silver platter. Maybe.
Can you name me one indicator?
Silver doesn't shatter. I want to let you know. Chandler, silver platter can't shatter. That's not how silver works, but all right.
indicator that isn't on a consistent trend from the Biden presidency? Is there one? Did the unemployment growth on January 21st randomly or did the unemployment randomly drop on January 21st? Is there an indicator that's not off of the back of what Biden was already building with his plans?
Yeah, so I can give you something that Biden destroyed. We had oil production, and oil production is something that's very important within our country. It obviously is our energy independence. It's something that goes into the gas prices. On day one, Joe Biden placed numerous regulations and executive orders to halt so much oil production in our country that while we were still growing our oil production, we had a 4% average growth rate during his presidency. Meanwhile, during the Trump presidency, we saw between 11 to 13% average growth rate during those years. That is a very major indicator of,
First off, once again, we're not accounting for the pandemic here. So the reality is when oil production gets halted, could that be in response to less demand for oil? Why would we be drilling for oil, especially in like early 2021 when we're still largely, in a pandemic? We're coming out of it. There isn't as much of a demand. And the reality is Biden did start issuing more oil permits. He issued more permits on federal lands than Trump did in his entire first term. So Biden actually was more pro-fracking and more in favor of oil production than Trump was. It is true that Biden placed certain regulations. You know which regulations he placed? On specific public lands, including national parks. I don't know about you, but I don't want to fucking destroy Yosemite just so gas is like 50 cents cheaper. Okay? That's not a worthwhile trade-off. We should not completely plunder every single natural resource on this planet and just completely disregard things like national parks and public spaces and things of that nature. So of course it's a trade-off. And Trump, of course, would want to just run directly and steamroll through any of that for anything he can do to lower, prices or, to increase oil profits for his oil buddies. So it's quite disingenuous.
My gosh, there's a problem, and that's why we saw, on top of numerous other factors, the gas prices get so bad. And we talk about the stock market and we talk about these tariffs. These things aren't actually here yet. They aren't actually hurting Americans yet. And the point that Luke and I
Because he keeps pausing them. Why does he keep pausing them?
Wait, that's not true. The stock market does, in fact, hurt Americans. If you are invested in the stock market and the stock market immediately crashes or goes down a lot in value, sure, you're fine, I guess, if you leave your money in there and hope things get better. But the reality is that if you put money in the stock market and the stock market goes down drastically in value, you factually have less money and are worse off financially than you were before. So absolutely it's hurting people. Just because the tariffs haven't gone into place, the threat of tariffs sends businesses spiraling because they don't know what to expect, and then the stock prices go down. And then you lose money. If you have a 401k invested, that goes down in value. If you're invested in index funds, even if you're in something like the S&P 500 in which your money is spread out, if everything is being affected, you do lose money. So this idea that because the stock market is merely predictive, it has no real world consequences is fucking ludicrous. That's just not, of course, all of economics is based on predictability, is based on determining where to buy and what to do. So this idea is just completely moot.
It's such a good idea. But if it's such a good idea, why would he keep...
What's the concession he's trying to get from Canada right now? Okay, so we've talked about this. At first, it was fentanyl, but then you said he switched the concession that he's trying to get from Canada and Mexico. What is it now? What's the concession he's trying to get?
The concession he's trying to get, and it's numerous things. So, for instance, one of the tariffs that we're talking about right now is steel. Steel is, Canada is one of the largest exporters of steel to our country, and something that we're really trying to work on is, as Luke mentioned, get our manufacturing back together. And you're making this whole joke about, oh my gosh, shore up manufacturing.
It takes time, man.
Yeah, actually, I do want to know, what is the plan to increase American manufacturing?
In one month, every company is going to build a manufacturing plant in every city, and they're going to hire all of these.
Well, we're not making the argument that it's going to be instant. We're patient.
But what is the plan?
Okay, the plan.
You're not patient because you're instituting tariffs right now. Just as just as Adam said before, there needs to be a grace period if you don't want immense economic pain. If you want corporations to build plants in America and build manufacturing jobs, even if these tariffs would work, you can't tariff the resources they will need to build these manufacturing plants here in the US. You're basically saying you have to do this, and we're going to make it economically harder for you to do it, which makes no sense whatsoever at all. No business is going to do that. Why would they waste all that money? They'll just wait out the tariffs and continue to do what they're doing in other countries because they're going to be hurt economically, whether they continue what they're doing or spend even more money here in the US. So this point is just ridiculous.
And the plan
It's
is to have
concepts of a
companies- there are real concepts of a plan, and they're going to come through.
So ironically,
okay, well,
using
let me
concepts of a
say it.
plan.
We have numerous companies. For instance, we have Intel and numerous other companies that are announcing they're going to be opening manufacturing plants. TSMC opening manufacturing.
When was that announced? Same thing with Apple, same thing with Honda. These were announced over 5 years ago. Just because now they're coming to fruition doesn't mean that Trump gets to take credit just because he institutes these tariffs and suddenly these companies fulfill the promise that they had for the past 5 years. Like, what, dude, what really? I'm just like, this is such like, I don't know, this is like a third grade logical fallacy type stuff. You know what I mean? If I say I'm going to do something in 5 days and on the 4th day you tell me to do it and I was going to do it anyway, you don't get to take credit for that. I was already planning to do it. So no, show me a company right now that in response to the tariffs has explicitly agreed to build a plant now. Maybe you'll find one. I haven't found that many. I haven't really found any. I've only found MAGA trying to take credit for things that are already happening. And this is something that we're going to see a lot of over the next 4 years. Because of things that happened under the Biden administration, such as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, like the Inflation Reduction Act, that's going to lead to a lot of improvements in American manufacturing and American infrastructure. And we're going to see a lot of that investment paying off in the next 4 years because economies are residual and things take time. So what's going to happen is all of this manufacturing and all of these improvements are going to happen under the Trump administration, and Trump's going to take credit for it, even though it's a result of Biden-era policies that put us in this position. So I'm just letting you know that's what's going to happen. So just be ready for it. They're already doing it right now. They're already taking credit for companies who made agreements under the Biden administration to build plants here. And now they're taking credit for it because it's happening under Trump. Once again, as conservatives' favorite fallacy to weaponize, correlation does not entail causation. Just because things are happening under Trump, just because prices are going up or down under Trump doesn't necessarily mean it's the fault of Trump. You have to attribute it to specific Trump policies and find that causal arrow. And 9 times out of 10, they can't do that.
Plants in America to create chips, a whole lot better than the so-called CHIPS and Science Act, by the way.
Break.
These are tangible things that
notice how he just like notice how he railed against the CHIPS and Sciences Act, but he didn't like say how it's bad whatsoever at all. The CHIPS and Sciences Act is the reason that TSMC and Intel are building plants here. Like what you were saying, oh my God, it's so great that Intel and TSMC are now going to build plants in the US. That's so much better than the CHIPS and Sciences Act. Brother, the CHIPS and Sciences Act is the reason that these companies are now building it there. The government contracts that allow them to do so. You're literally talking out of both sides of your mouth saying, this was awful, but this thing would happen is great. Despite the fact that the awful thing caused the great thing. Like what?
Going to be happening. I believe it's either Toyota or Honda that announced that they're opening yet another manufacturing plant here in the United States.
After they announced it like 5 years ago. You can look it up. They already announced that this was happening. Before Trump even took office, they were planning on doing this. But of course, we're just going to look at results and whoever's president, and of course we'll correlate those two until bad things happen under Trump, and then suddenly things are complicated. Like, ugh.
In materials from other places, but assemble them here in America. And the real point is we're trying to get even higher up on that river of production. So for instance, the Canadian steel goes into so many things that we use on a day-to-day basis that so many Americans say, well, hey, companies, it would be better for America as a whole, manufacturing jobs that Americans can have that increase our economy, increase our GDP, things of that nature, if we had that manufacturing here in America instead of, hey, let's do it in Canada.
I just think what you said right there about chips and manufacturing, that's not what Trump's saying. If we checked his Truth Social right now and we checked what he said about Canada over the past week, I can guarantee he's made 19 jokes about Canada being the 51st state and Trudeau being a governor. He has, and you're proud of that.
Why is that so funny? You know what I mean?
I wouldn't say I'm proud of it, but I don't have to take it so serious.
What's his end goal? You don't think he should take that seriously?
You don't think you should take
the U.S. president showing the same imperial ambitions that Vladimir Putin is showing?
I'm saying I don't take him saying, oh, the 51st governor of Canada seriously. Just like I didn't take people saying Joe Biden is. Here we go. I'm not even going to go there.
Because he doesn't know anything. You just decided to bring up Joe Biden, but he couldn't come up with an example because there is no example of Joe Biden making baseless threats. I'm not going to go there means I don't have an example and I just pulled that out of my ass. Absolutely, you should take it seriously when the president of the United States is saying these things. Like, all the time, everyone's saying don't take Trump seriously when he says this. Trump said, oh yeah, I'm going to overturn Roe v. Wade. People are like, that's not possible. That's not going to happen. Look where we are right now. Trump said, oh, COVID's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. It is a big deal. Absolutely, we should take the president seriously. And if MAGA is literally going to admit that we shouldn't take the president at his word, because of course he's joking. That's the oldest thing in the playbook. You know what I mean? Oh, of course he's joking. We should take him seriously when he says stuff we agree with. And when he says crazy lunatic shit, like, maybe we should nuke a hurricane or you should inject disinfectant to get rid of COVID. Obviously, he's joking. No, maybe he's just that authoritarian and that stupid. Has that crossed your mind? I think that's much more probable than Trump being this mastermind of comedy who apparently thinks it's the job of the president to joke about annexing a sovereign nation that's one of our allies. Like, really?
So many things people said about Joe Biden that I said, okay, listen, I'm not going to take that
But that's not what
seriously.
Joe Biden is saying. I'm saying, he's saying the president of the United States of America is absolutely saying that. Why should we not take what the president says at face value? Also, it's fair to support a president without supporting every single thing they do. You do not have to blindly just accept
Well, that's
that this
MAGA,
is okay.
though. That's MAGA. I mean, it's a cult of personality around Donald Trump. These people are not Republicans. There's a difference between MAGA and conservative. Because MAGA is entirely separate. It's focused on one man, Donald Trump. They've made their own cult-like religion, frankly. Or cult-like religion is kind of oxymoronic because a lot of organized religion is basically just a cult. But yeah, I don't know. Like, that's just the reality of it.
Continue to wait and wait and wait for it to work out.
Correct.
This is a bad idea. It's not working.
I mean, if things actually were bad, and I can man up and I could admit that, but again, we're 2 months.
Man up, of course, invoke masculinity here, even though you won't, admit that Trump should take any responsibility for anything that's happening.
I'm not going to be that guy that stands by Trump with everything because I disagree with things that Trump has done. But at the end of the day, I can't make such a big decision off of 2 months into a
He set a
presidency.
goal for the American economy, and instead of meeting it, he has done the opposite.
Yes, but just how you've said that we can't look at, oh, well, in 6 months it will be better. Well, you guys are doing the same thing, saying, well, it's getting bad. In a couple of months it's going to be bad. We don't
Sorry, let him finish.
know whether it's going to be good or bad. You guys can assume based off of what you believe, and we assume based off of what we believe. And
Of course, yeah, everyone has their own facts. We're basing it off Trump's own promises. Like I said before, it would be unfair of us, largely, if we were going to just be like, oh my God, it's 2 months in, everything is terrible. Of course, it is possible for things to get worse before people get better. Now, granted, there's not really any evidence to suggest that there are these grand long-term benefits that we just are blind to. That it's just not really the case that happens with tariffs. Tariffs almost always. There are some instances in which tariffs can be helpful. I'm not saying tariffs are, I'm not someone who's a free trade absolutist. And there are certain instances, especially when it comes to human rights violations in countries who are, have very serious issues in which we should tariff them. We should not tariff them to get in a trade war, to get concessions that are not related to trade. That leads to holding the American economy and other economies hostage for some other political goal. And that doesn't lead to good outcomes. But back to this point. We are basing Trump off his own assertions. Trump made the ludicrous claim that he is going to fix things on day one. Prices are going to go down on day one. The Russia-Ukraine war and everything in Israel and Palestine, all of it's going to be fixed on day one. Of course, that's insane. Does anyone believe him? No, but we're going to hold him accountable when January 21st comes along and there's still a war happening between Russia and Ukraine. There's still people being killed in Gaza. We're going to hold him accountable for that. So yeah, Trump was the one who was making the claim that things are going to get better immediately, not us. So the gaslighting is crazy.
so until it actually happens, we just won't know.
Who is Mahmoud Khalil, the anti-Israel Columbia University activist ICE arrested? Should Mahmoud Khalil be considered a terrorist? 3, 2, 1. Whoa, we all agree.
All right, we have some disagreement.
I will go. So I don't think he should be deemed a terrorist. That is because a terrorist is somebody who has enacted a state of violence with an intention of coercion or intimidation onto another government. Where we might have a little bit of disagreement is he is right now being He was arrested, he's being investigated, and he's up for potential deportation. I believe he was from Syria.
Yes.
I do agree with that. The reason is the president has the ability to deport an immigrant, that is, whether it's on a green card or a visa, whatever it might be, if they pose as a threat to the country. The reason why I believe he poses as a threat is because he's come out with not just pro-Palestine, that's another thing, but he's come out with pro-Hamas rhetoric, and Hamas in itself is a terrorist organization. He's outwardly supported that. He has put together groups to outwardly support that. And in the state of where we're at, in the state of the world, in the state of the country, I think that is the wise decision, because you can play the devil's advocate of, well, he hasn't done something, but if he's outwardly shown evidence and outwardly expressed potential future of doing something, I think that is the wise decision.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
If we're going to deport people who are threats to our country and spread anti-Semitic propaganda, can we start with Elon Musk?
I was about to say that.
That dude
he
Sieg Heiled.
literally just
He
Sieg
Sieg Heiled
Heiled
twice, but also
we can get to that in a second. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself too much because I think there's going to be a lot of this discussion here. I want to touch on some stuff that Luke said there. That is actually just antithetical to the First Amendment. It is actually not against the First Amendment to support with your words, support terrorism. Like saying that you support a terrorist group, that you agree with the ideals behind which they are operating on. It's actually not even illegal to say you support that violence, because in the Brandenburg test, which was determined the limits of free speech, they determined that there was two different two different prongs or two different criteria that have to be met in order for speech to be considered no longer protected speech. And it's not just advocating violence. There has to be a legitimate chance that your words will actually incite that violence. The violence will just be incited. So, for example, if someone in their basement with a few friends is saying, "Yeah, I want to shoot the president," just because he's advocating violence doesn't mean it's against the First Amendment, because the likelihood of violence actually happening is very low. Now, if they put together a coordinated plan and a conspiracy and buy weapons and, are texting each other about their plans to go to the White House and murder the president, now that's a different story. But merely advocating in favor of it is not a violation of the First Amendment. If we're talking specifically about him, there is no evidence to suggest that he was planning violent attacks. The furthest that I've seen is that we wouldn't condemn Hamas, which, now granted, I want to put it out there, I don't support Hamas. I think a theocracy, I think something that's based on a radical religion, no matter what it is, will not lead to a free people, will not lead to the best outcomes. That doesn't mean that it's against the First Amendment to vocalize your support. I think, and we're going to see this a bit with the discussion with Luigi Mangione, very often we are selective with the violence that we choose to condemn, What if I supported the Vietnam War? A war that killed 1 million Vietnamese people, or the war in Iraq? That was global terrorism by the United States. Terrorism is a word that we use and ascribe to violence that we don't agree with, despite the fact that the United States factually is the largest exporter of global terrorism abroad. We bomb more countries, we cause more refugees to exist, we kill more people. It's factually the case. We make every part of the world more unsafe with our military presence, largely. So, yeah, I don't know. We're going to talk about this later because I think there's a really interesting parallel between the situation between, the war in Gaza, as well as the situation with Luigi Mangione killing Brian Thompson. I want to make clear, I don't support Hamas. I don't think Hamas is what's best for the Palestinian people. However, there's a difference. I want to talk about this later in the Luigi Mangione section, but just as a preview, there's a difference between justifying violence and understanding it. And I think that that's where the disconnect is. And the government should not be able to deport people, citizen or non-citizen, I guess, it's especially if they're a permanent resident with legal status, they should not be able to deport them on the mere accusation alone that they broke the law. Not even that they broke the law. Actually, I mean, that's even incorrect. Marco Rubio came out and said the accusation here is not that he has committed a crime, but merely that he has expressed sentiments that are considered anti-Semitic and poses a national security threat. If the United States government has the ability to deport someone who merely on the basis of accusations poses a national security threat, we are no longer a democracy, and the First Amendment does not exist. So that is factually the case. There is the undocumented, not undocumented, even undocumented individuals, but especially permanent residents, individuals with a green card or a visa, do have constitutional rights. I think MAGA has just pulled out of their ass that suddenly, oh, it's not a citizen, therefore the Constitution doesn't apply. No! There's a reason in the Constitution it doesn't mention the word citizen in the Bill of Rights. In the Fifth Amendment, it says no person shall be deprived of liberty without due process of law. Not no citizen. Same way with a right to jury trial. Same way the right to free speech. Same way the right, to own a firearm. Although that one might be citizenship. But almost every single, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. People, that's still people. Yeah. As is necessary. I don't know. I'm not going to try to recall the exact wording of the Second Amendment. But regardless, there's a reason why that's the case. And there's a reason why everyone should have a right to due process. We go all the way back. Let's go back all the way to John Adams in the 1800s with the Boston Massacre. John Adams represented as legal counsel the British soldiers who murdered, I believe, 3 or 5 individuals, because everyone deserves a right to due process, regardless of if they are a citizen or non-citizen or a considered threat to to our national security. So this is just absolutely ludicrous. The reality is he was kidnapped by the United States government for expressing sentiments that they disagreed with. And that is about as authoritarian and totalitarian as it can get. So
we can't talk about this because there's so many liberal politicians that have done the same.
Not
they have
Kyle?
not.
No.
Kamala,
This is such a
he didn't
fucking
see
fraud.
Kyle. Okay, listen, this
Yes,
is,
he did.
and it's so funny. I'm gonna use something against y'all. If y'all are gonna say he's Seek Hiling, then you're both ableists.
fuck off. Are you? No, the only person who has a mental disability here is you, Chandler. If you genuinely fucking believe that it's ableist to say that Elon Musk, if he Sieg Heiled. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry. When was a symptom of whatever you're going to say, Asperger's, Nazism? Last time I checked, that's not a symptom of having an intellectual disability. Kanye doesn't get a pass, and we talk about that later. Kanye doesn't get a pass for being a Nazi piece of shit because he might not be taking his meds. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. You're also calling this man a captain of innovation. This man who he's so smart, he's gonna, fix the government through his Department of Government Efficiency, but he's just too neurodivergent to know what a Nazi salute is. Shut the fuck up. Like, are you even serious right now?
Elon Musk has Asperger's syndrome.
Oh my
he doesn't
God.
really, he's not always cognizant of how things are looking.
Okay, so if not cognizant of how things are looking, why the fuck are we trusting him to gut our government? Are you serious? Really? Elon Musk just doesn't know what a Nazi salute is, but he does know how to unilaterally fix the United States government. Oh, and by the way, he has conflicts of interest that basically mean that he's overseeing every single one of his companies and how they're being subsidized by the government. But don't mind that because he's this mastermind, but he doesn't know what a fucking Nazi salute is. Like, give me a break. The hypocrisy, it's not even funny anymore. It's just scary. Like, I don't...
Or what that looks like from the external perspective.
Can I ask another real question, though? Does it ever worry you guys that Trump...
I don't want to gloss over that so much. This idea that it wasn't a Sieg Heil is insane. Of people just bending over backwards to try and justify this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, can we just appreciate for a moment how crazy it is that just because it was someone like Elon Musk, Republicans are bending over backwards to defend a Nazi salute? That's not what that is. Here's how he goes. He was saying, my heart goes out to you. If you do that, I'll do this to the camera right now. My heart goes out to you. That's how you do it. You don't rotate your arm and lift it up and go like this. I'm not even going to do it on camera because that is a Nazi salute. But imagine I go like this. My heart out to you, and then I put my hand up. That's not how you do it. That's just not. So it's a lie. It is a fucking lie. And we shouldn't be justifying Nazism. But of course, when they're also citing Joseph Goebbels, what is it? I think it was Keith Self or something cited Joseph Goebbels, that it's the job of the government to shape public opinion. Dog, the Fourth Reich isn't coming. Like, I don't, there's no use denying it anymore.
Labeled Mahmoud a threat to national security, correct?
Yeah.
And they're using that justification. What if the next administration has a completely different definition of what a threat to national security is, and they think that, I don't know, like a January 6er is a threat to national security?
Well,
I think
did.
supporting an outward terrorist organization kind of is worthy of being deemed that.
How about a domestic terrorist organization that tried to overthrow the United States government? Oh, of course, they're not brown, though. They're fucking white. Like, literally, yeah. Oh, no, I liked what they were doing, therefore it was okay, but since this guy is espousing views that aren't even violent, or even if he was espousing some sort of violence, you can't deport someone merely for advocating violence if it doesn't meet the definition of incitement, or it doesn't meet the criterion for incitement, which it certainly did not. This dude was not the leader of a militia or something, or didn't have conspiracy plans to go murder Jewish people, or anything of that nature, or to fly to Gaza and join Hamas. Like, none of that happened. The allegation wasn't even that he broke the law. I said that before, but I want it to sink in. They aren't even saying that he broke the law. They're saying that he can be deported merely because he poses a threat to national security, according to the government. He hasn't committed a crime, and no one else gets to vet that. There's no checks or balances. He doesn't get his day in court. He doesn't have due process. Authoritarian shit, guys. Objectively, authoritarian shit. That simple.
I'm saying I think that is a threat to national security, but if the president is the one deciding who is a threat to national security unilaterally, it's kind of scary, right?
Well, I don't
think the president's the one deciding.
But he is the one deciding.
Yes,
I mean, he's actively been deciding.
Donald Trump was the one who, yeah.
Well, he has the ability to, I guess, push for the investigation, but he's not the one that's actually making the decision.
So who was
There
he?
was not a single change in policy.
So can I ask
Who made the decision?
decided that Mahmoud Khalil should be detained? Like, whose decision?
And what was he charged? Wasn't he not charged with anything yet?
Like, Mahmoud Khalil
I
has
think
not
it's
actively.
still being investigated.
Isn't that
He's
weird?
never-
It was not being investigated. Marco Rubio came out and said that they are not charging him with a crime. The allegation is not that he broke the law, but merely that he is a threat to national security and apparently is anti-Semitic. Because apparently merely the accusation of anti-Semitism can get you deported, if you really want to know where our priorities lie.
Committed a crime.
Here's the thing, and this is going to kind of breach into different territory, Patriot Act type stuff. He doesn't have to commit a crime to be deported.
That's fucking wild. Genuinely fucking insane. I just want to let you know. Like, he doesn't have to commit a crime. We can just deport him because we feel like it.
Particularly if his, allegation is for supporting a terrorist organization, which is at this point irrefutable. Even if he's not exactly a terrorist, even if he's not blowing things up or anything like that, if he's a member of an organization at Columbia University, which itself on October 8th said, we are in full support of what is happening with Hamas. We support violent resistance or something like that.
So to Adam's point, if a government, the executive branch, if a presidential power has the authority to decide what group is a terrorist, and then has the authority to decide how much a person's affiliation with any group deems them a terrorist, if there is an organization that, if there's a president after Trump who deems that a group that you are in support of is a terrorist organization, how are we deciding who is a terrorist organization, who is in favor of these terrorist organizations, and
without due process,
level of threat they are? Because to me, it seems like a violation of his First Amendment right to speak on behalf of
You're making a weird face, but didn't he just, didn't he say stuff? You just admitted himself.
Your First Amendment right gets revoked the second that you incite violence onto another individual.
Did he incite violence?
It does. He did not incite violence.
Do we have any proof of what
he did not?
He supported the violence that has been done by Hamas.
That's not inciting violence. That is, but you see the sleight of hand there. Luke has no idea what the legal grounds for incitement are. It's not merely supporting an organization. That would mean that my hypothetical support of the U.S. government in their continued funding of the genocide in Gaza would mean that I am inciting violence. No, I'm not. And no one who supports the US government's efforts is genuinely inciting violence. Can we say it makes them a bad person? Can it say it makes them somewhat complicit in what's happening? Yes. But that doesn't mean that they've incited violence, because inciting violence is not merely just advocating violence. It is the realistic likelihood that the violence will occur as a result of the speech, directly caused by the speech, as outlined in the Brandenburg test given by the Supreme Court. But of course, Luke knows none of that.
Begin labeling and deporting people on the grounds that they are a terrorist without due process. Because if any president can do that, then maybe the next president does that to people that you actively agree with. And maybe the next president isn't, I mean, I don't.
Well, did he label him a terrorist? I thought they
That's why he's
Yes,
I
they
think
did.
the Trump admin is labeling him, but also I'm pretty sure he hasn't been charged. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's no charge. Isn't that odd?
No, he's never been charged with a crime.
scary.
Well, he's not an actual citizen, for one. And
Yes,
for
somebody
two,
got
He
charged.
does have a green card, though.
he does have a green card, which they have the power to revoke. They
They have to have cause to revoke it. They have to have cause to revoke it, and judges can step in and should step in if the government is revoking someone's green card on the basis of dissent, on the basis of violating their constitutional rights. You still have constitutional rights in this country, even if you are not a citizen. That is just factual. And the fact that these constitutional conservatives don't know the fucking Constitution is not surprising. But it's just indicative that they don't care about the rule of law. Of course they don't care about the rule of law. They have a convicted felon as president. But of course they don't know. They don't think he has the right to due process because they don't like his message and they don't like what he stands for. And conservatism is all about hierarchy. It's preserving the status quo, and because he poses a threat not to national security, but the status quo that they enjoy and the privilege that they enjoy in said status quo, they believe that is grounds to arrest him and deport him. Plain and simple. This is not about the law. It's about power and them exercising their authoritarian power against someone who they don't agree with, weaponizing our government against this individual.
This is more of a question of how much do we want to allow the government to have power? Because I think what we might actually surprisingly all agree upon is that the government probably needs to have a little bit less power in this regard.
So then why are you saying they should be able to deport him? You literally just defended the basis that the government should be able to deport Mahmoud Khalil, even though he hasn't committed a crime, merely because he poses a threat to national security and has a green card, which apparently you think the executive branch has the power to unilaterally revoke, which is not the case. Immigrants have brought and won suits against the government for revoking their green card on the basis of a violation of their constitutional rights.
In regards to citizens, like I am
It doesn't
not
matter.
really in support of the government being able to say, oh, well, you're a terrorist, you're a terrorist, you're a terrorist. If you are a naturalized citizen.
That's just not how
Mahmoud
this
Khalil
works.
was born in Syria. He came to America on a student visa and then acquired a green card, which is, hey, a great thing. But and I'm not saying he's a terrorist, but unfortunately the government has so much power that in the eyes of the government, supporting a group that itself issued a statement in support of a terrorist.
Do you realize how convoluted that is? This is almost guilt by association. No, I'm not even defending Mahmoud Khalil's positions on things. I don't agree with his claim that Hamas is like an organization that should be unilaterally supported. I don't. I think fundamentally they are a resistance group that is acting in response to the continued violence that Gazan people face, and they are capitalizing on that violence to accrue power, and they are not operating in the best interest of Palestinians. That doesn't mean that he should be deported for supporting that. It's a political belief. It's a political opinion. If he's inciting violence, that's different, but he's not. And how do we determine if someone is inciting violence? This is really important. How do we determine if someone's a threat to national security, if they are inciting violence, if they are doing something that's not protected by the First Amendment? That's why we have courts. That's why we have a judicial branch that is designed to adjudicate these constitutional questions. But he is being denied the mechanism to determine whether he is actually in violation of the law or the Constitution. And they aren't even bothering to charge him with a crime. They are flouting their executive power. This is a litmus test. The government is seeing right now under the Trump administration what they can get away with. That's what all of their executive orders have been. They are testing the limits of constitutional power and constitutional authority, and hoping that they're able to get through. Can we blatantly violate the 14th Amendment and determine that people were born in this country despite the 14th Amendment clearly saying that they're citizens? Can we get the Supreme Court to agree with us that they're not, or can we unilaterally deny them citizenship? Can we revoke people's access to their green cards merely because they disagree with us? Let's see what we can do. This is going to be a litmus test for our country. I mean, all of this is going to be written in history books, but this in particular, I think, is going to be very, very prevalent when an individual was potentially, I mean, at this point, a judge, I believe in Louisiana, just ruled that the government does have grounds to deport him, merely on the basis of a threat to national security without due process. These are scary times we live in. I wouldn't get too comfortable in the fact that you're a citizen or the fact that you have protected status, because ultimately, there's that famous quote. What is it? First they came for the socialists, but I did nothing because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the gypsies, but I did nothing because they were because I was not a gypsy. Then they came for the disabled people, yada yada yada, and then they came for me, but there was no one else to defend me. It's a very true quote that Martin Luther King Jr. said, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So just because something is not personally affecting you does not mean you do not have a stake in it, and does not mean that you should not care about it. The fact that the government is able to unilaterally deport someone it deems a threat to national security without due process and without even alleging that they broke the law should send chills down everyone's spine. Everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your political persuasion. If you care at all about having the right to free speech, having constitutional protections, this is an affront to your constitutional rights. So I just want to mention that.
Group, by extension, makes you not necessarily a terrorist, but able to be deported for terrorism.
I don't think that green card holders should have less constitutional rights than
They don't.
Natural-born citizens.
Well, that's a fundamental disagreement.
Well,
yeah.
Well, then Chandler, you're in disagreement with the fucking Constitution. I don't know what to tell you. You are. The Constitution does not mention citizenship as a necessary requirement for the Bill of Rights. That's why they use the term person and not citizen in things like the Fifth Amendment, in things like the 14th Amendment, in things like the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, press of people. It doesn't mention citizens. Take it up with the fucking founders who you like to idolize so much. I don't know what to tell you.
The First Amendment should apply to anybody.
I think that, yeah, exactly. I think
Correct.
that everyone who is here legally should be protected by
He just said it does. So Chandler just agreed that it does, but he thinks it shouldn't. So Chandler, I just want to point it out, you are at odds with the Constitution. We're not the ones who are against the Constitution. You are against the Constitution.
First Amendment, and that includes him.
Can you guys see where I'm coming from when I say this does worry me from the perspective of free speech in the First Amendment? Conservatives should know, or should love free speech more than anybody apparently. It creates this chilling effect almost, where people are scared to voice their opinion, and you probably shouldn't be voicing pro-Hamas opinions, but now what if there's like a pro-Palestinian protester who's a little bit worried? It creates this chilling effect, and it's almost like a slippery slope. Not to use the slippery slope fallacy, but it does sometimes scare me when the government is, without even charging people,
Correct.
detaining them, because he didn't charge them.
No, and I know. But
detaining.
And this case is setting a precedent on what that means going forward. Like right now
Correct.
it's Mahmoud Khalil, but who will it be next time?
And can I just say,
well, that already happened to January 6 prisoners. They did get charged, but so many of them were sitting without trial.
Were they deported? Did we fucking deport these people? No.
That we had to issue a blanket pardon because some of them hadn't
that
seen
is
the light
not
of
why
day.
there was a blanket pardon. They were not sitting there without a trial. They had due process just like everybody else. Can you guys name one J6er who didn't get due process?
There we
not
go.
off the top of my
Sorry
head
to put you on the spot like that, but
No,
come on,
you
if
got
you're saying
nothing.
that these people aren't getting due process, there should be somebody who you have like a prime example, like a
Correct.
strong
There
example.
were individuals from J6 that were just released like a month ago because they've been in prison this entire time.
Is your source Truth Social? Because
Okay,
I
well,
don't think...
I can mention
my
somebody.
They were also charged and convicted of crimes. I don't know what to tell you. These people broke into the Capitol. They assaulted police officers. They vandalized the Capitol and obstructed the proceedings of Congress. These are identifiable crimes with which they were charged with and tried for. How does this have any comparison to someone who was kidnapped by the United States government on suspicion that they were engaged in dissent, basically, and not even charged with a crime? Conservatives love to scream Orwellian. This is the primary example of an Orwellian state. George Orwell would be rolling in his grave. He is rolling in his grave.
One of my sources is someone that was actually there. Kind of how you guys are going along.
How telling. No, you guys don't understand. I knew someone who was there at the domestic terrorism event. Telling.
The lines of like people being afraid to speak out. I mean, that's how Republicans have felt for the last 4 years, because we would speak out.
Oh my God.
You guys would be. Biden was on stage that was essentially comparing us to Nazis.
No, he
if
was
we support.
not.
Yes, he was.
What
if
was
we
the line?
supported, but he was
Guys, we're doing
comparing
so
us.
good.
Well, I'm saying there's video evidence of it. He was comparing.
I love this shit. I love this shit so much. This shows the persecution complex that so many conservatives, specifically conservative white men, have. Yo, you don't understand. We really feel how Mahmoud Khalil feels, because you don't understand. I know that he's, he's kidnapped and detained, and is at risk of deportation. But you don't understand. The president said some mean stuff about us in a speech. So you don't understand. We're really like equally persecuted. The fuck? Like, what level of delusion do you have to live in which you think that you are as oppressed as an immigrant who is at risk of deportation for expressing protected First Amendment speech when, are you tried? Did the Biden administration lock you up for expressing it? No! You don't like that there was societal consequences for your shitty opinions. I'm sorry, the First Amendment does not equal freedom from societal consequence. It does equal that you won't be locked up by the U.S. government for expressing opinions that they disagree with, which is what happened to Khalil. But just because you don't like that the president was calling you out on your bullshit, or other people were calling you out on your bullshit, or you're being potentially even banned from social media platforms for being a piece of shit, you're not oppressed. You're just experiencing consequences for your actions. Very different, but of course you're not going to see the difference, because you have to be the oppressed in your story, because that's the only way you can justify like anything that happens to other people. Is somehow you have to be the perpetual victim who's just acting in self-defense when you deport an immigrant who expressed something you disagree with. It's because he's a threat to national security, threat to us. We're the victims here. Give me a fucking break.
MAGA believers to Nazis.
So to
and
my
I think
point-
that made us afraid, but I think that's why we have those definitions in line.
So to
Was he
my point-
did he lock you up? Are you in jail? Are you at risk of deportation? No. Also, Joe Biden did not compare all of Donald Trump supporters to Nazis. This is just factually inaccurate. I don't know what else to tell you. Even if it was the case, the president saying that and the administration actively deporting someone for that are wildly different domains of comparable. And the fact that you think they are just shows how completely incompetent you are.
Those
Like
checks.
if the next president is a Democrat and they label organizations that are speaking out in favor of the far right as terrorist, and any green card holder who speaks out in support of your causes is now a terrorist and can be detained and deported without due process, that would hurt your cause. So right now it's pro-Palestinian protests and it's pro-Hamas, but next time it can be anyone, and that's the fear.
And we all have the same color, so I know that we're at each other's necks a bit, but we all agree that definitionally he's not a terrorist. We all agree that the government should probably be a little bit more careful with who they choose to target and deport. I mean, hey, if there are conservatives being unfairly targeted by the government, I'm not okay with that. We've sat here and talked for a while now. You know that I'm genuinely not okay with the government censoring conservatives or all of these, whatever you guys think the Biden administration was doing. And yeah, so I mean, we can all agree that the government should probably be more careful when they're targeting people who are just protesting.
Luigi Mangione's journal, not manifesto, about healthcare industry grievances.
Here we
Attorney
go.
Argues. Was Luigi Mangione justified? 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
Okay, so before you all attack the hell out of me, I want to say Luigi Mangione hasn't been tried yet. The trial is not completed, and he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So I think that going into this debate, like, it shouldn't be about whether or not he killed the CEO of United Healthcare, because we cannot claim that yet.
Correct.
And I've had a lot of discussions about Luigi Mangione under the presumption that he's done it and that he is the person who did it.
But that's such a weird, trivial thing. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree with her very strongly here. The conversation is based on the presumption. It's on the conditional if. If Luigi Mangione or someone else was the person who killed the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, was he justified in doing so? That's the question. It's not, is he justified? Like, If he did it, was he justified in doing so? So I think this is an intentionally obtuse reading of the question. So I don't know.
And I'm not going to.
But he
give my
definitely
opinion.
did do it. He definitely did do it. Well, here's the thing. There's two separate
I
things
mean,
we can argue.
that's also not the right way to go about it. Adam, who was just so strongly in defense of due process, is now saying that we know for sure that he did it, even though he has not been convicted by a jury. So what's going on here, Adam? Let's extend this innocent until proven guilty in the eyes of the law. Innocent in the eyes of the law until proven guilty to everyone.
About the legality of the trial, which we should probably stay away from, or the morality of what.
I don't want to argue about the morality of killing the CEO of healthcare because I think it is immoral to kill anyone, regardless of your grievances.
About this at all.
What I think he is justified in is his grievances with the United States healthcare system.
You should argue the morality of it. That's the question. What else would you argue? The legality of it? Are you going to argue whether he has a right to due process? I mean, there's some disagreement over whether immigrants should have that right. So who knows? Maybe someone at that table is going to go full fascist and say that, no, we should immediately be executed. But no, that's not an interesting conversation. Was he justified in doing what he did? So that's the conversation that should be had.
Can we all agree with this fundamental fact? He's justified in his grievances, as you said, about the healthcare system, not justified in the killing.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Luke, what do you? I see you sitting there.
Here we go.
Healthcare is perfect.
Because therefore that was the reason that he killed him. And I don't think
Correct.
any reason to kill anybody is ever justified.
Well, that's
Hold on. Saying someone has a reason to do something doesn't mean that reason was justified. They literally said he had grievances and those were his reasons, but that doesn't mean he was justified. What?
We're saying that
He's
the killing
separating
is
from
not justified. But if you separate the act from the reason for the act, I think that it is justified to have grievances with the U.S.
I think it's hard for me to
It's too hard for his brain to grasp such a complex and nuanced idea. He likes to break things into very small categories. Does anyone have a coloring book with crayons that maybe he could draw out the ideas so he can understand them better? Might be helpful.
separate that.
Well, here's the
That's
thing.
fair.
Here's the question.
That's fair.
Do you think the
It's not
healthcare
fair.
industry in America is kind of fucked?
That's basically what mine is.
I mean, yeah, I think healthcare and insurance.
So he was justified to be worried, but then everything he did after that. I guess the argument that I'd make for why you can't just kill people in the streets, which we all seem to agree on this, is that it weakens the cohesion of a society, number one. But number two, I think one of the beautiful things about America is that there are many avenues for our voice to be heard. So even if you don't vote, you can go out there and protest. You can call your representative. You can post online. There are 100 different ways for your voice to be heard.
Adam, this neoliberalism, this liberal idea that, the system is perfect and bends towards justice is painful. People have been bringing healthcare suits and people have been protesting peacefully about the healthcare system for fucking decades. For as long as we've had privatized insurance. And it's done jack shit. The idea that we just have so many avenues for our voice to be heard, bullshit. 70% of Americans support some form of single-payer healthcare. Even 51% of Republicans support single-payer healthcare. Why don't we have it? If our political system is so responsive to the will of the people, why don't we have it? It's because we don't. We don't have a system that's responsive to the American people. We have a system that's responsive to large interests, to big money interests, to big pharma, who is donating millions upon millions, if not billions of dollars, to both sides of the political aisle to ensure that no matter who wins, they still win. Red or blue, they win. So no, this is not this. We don't have a system that is responsive to the will of the American people. We'll get into that in a second. But I just want to shoot down this idea that somehow, oh yeah, this is super justified, or not justified, but there's so many courses of action. He didn't need to kill him. He could have just held up a picket sign and be like, I'm so sad people die. No, please don't do that, Mr. Brian Thompson. Maybe you should have pleaded with him instead. Maybe you should have walked up to him and been like, hey, can you not deny 33% of the claims that you're given? It's just so naive. It's so naive to how the world actually works.
None of those should include just murdering someone in the middle of the street. That's probably not an avenue that we should take in America. If you're living in an authoritarian country and that's the last resort, that's a different conversation. But we live in America, and this dude seems pretty smart, right? Luigi Mangione could have just gotten a degree in medicine and just helped people, actually helped people. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all this, the thing that's frankly disgusted me the most is how many, I'm not targeting them, but it's just I've seen it the most, is a lot of these liberal women are almost making him a hero.
How shocking. Luke is disgusted by liberal women. Don't worry, Luke. I'm sure the liberal women are disgusted by you too. So I'm sure the feeling is mutual.
Talking about how he was handsome, and it's almost like this weird fetish.
They did that with Ted Bundy too.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think
it's just a societal thing.
They do it all the time.
I mean, like, do we live in a society where it's like that stuff is celebrated? And I think that's what, out of this whole thing, really it really disgusted me.
Did you notice the online reaction to Luigi Mangione? A lot of people in the comment section of videos were like, not supportive, but they understood where he was coming from healthcare-wise.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people hide behind their screens and
For
say
sure.
things they wouldn't
But
say in
can you
person.
understand?
Well, now we're here in person, and I will say, as one of these liberal women, I
But
do
you're a
not
leftist.
support the killing of anyone.
Right.
I mean, he hasn't been tried yet, and I don't want to make a claim to his guilt or innocence. With that being said, I do think that it's fair to have grievances with the United States healthcare system.
It's also a lie that you should, like, it's always wrong to kill someone. It just is. I'm sorry. Like, all the time. We kill people in war all the time. We kill people via the death penalty. She's probably against the death penalty, so maybe that's not a good example. But, like, I don't know. I don't know when I want to get into this. I might wait until the segment is over, but I do have some thoughts on this that I do want to get into. But I'll let them finish their segment.
It's objectively broken. I think that I know I've personally experienced issues with the healthcare system not providing for me in times when I really needed it. I'm sure many of you.
Luke hasn't. I'm sorry, I don't want to be pejorative. Luke just hasn't. You can tell because when they're talking about how messed up the healthcare system is, he's just sitting here like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It just seems, I don't know. It's not that big of a problem because he hasn't experienced it firsthand. I'm sure that he's always had the money to cover these needs. Otherwise, he would understand how fucked up it is.
Have and witness that within your families. And I think that the reasons that he was upset are very much valid. But what he did with that upset, with his anger, was not.
An interesting argument that I've heard is when you say that Luigi Mangione shouldn't be able to unilaterally kill anybody, people on the other side, I don't know if I agree with this, they'd say that Brian Thompson, the CEO, was making the decision to kill people with his healthcare company. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but if I want to provide the alternate
agree with
argument
that.
of what people would say.
Well,
What do
thank
think
you for
about
bringing that up.
I think it's a very great. It's a very great. It's great that you mention it. I actually kind of want to ping this to Naima. Do you agree with that argument?
That Brian Thompson, I think that Brian Thompson arguably should have been tried. Like, I think that, again, going back to
True.
due process,
Not
Brian
just
Thompson
him,
was denied his right to due process.
The entire United Health group. I mean, private insurance in general. These people are criminals. These people fundamentally are criminals.
Do I think that he was, like, somewhat responsible for the deaths of 400,000 people?
Absolutely, he was.
Probably,
yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, great.
But at the same time, he shouldn't have just been shot dead in the street
Right.
because
Probably not a
he
cool
should have
thing
been
to do.
tried and gone to jail.
With that information in mind, even though you're green, I think we probably might be able to come to a middle ground again of saying Luigi Mangione is justified in his grievance, not justified in the alleged murder.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
Boom, we're done.
Alleged murder.
Handled.
Sure.
Okay, so I want to touch on this a bit because I do have a lot of thoughts about this. I think one big issue here is that there's a difference between justifying violence and understanding it. So I agree largely with them that he should not have shot him down in the street. Probably not great. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't advise that someone do it. However, it is also possible, and we should understand why he would be drawn to do it. The private insurance industry in this country is criminal. The model itself is not designed to provide good care. The job of insurance companies, it's basically a really bad Netflix subscription. Imagine if you subscribe to Netflix, and you subscribe to it, and the goal of the streaming platform was to provide as few movies as they literally could, or TV shows possible. Their goal is to provide it as least amount of stuff to you as possible. And if you're not able to watch the movie that you need or want to be able to watch, you die. That's literally what the system is. The system is designed so that they take your money every month in the form of a premium and then do everything they can to deny your claim or figure out a reason why you're not covered when you put in a claim for the care and insurance that you paid for. The United Healthcare and the United Health Group in particular is uniquely terrible in this regard. They deny over a third of the claims they are given. 1 out of 3 people who submits a claim to them for valid care They deny that person. And what they do is they hope that by the time that that person is able to, either hire a lawyer, fight them with legal challenges, challenge them on that basis, that they will just give up on it because it's too big of a task. It is disgusting the way that it happens, and it results in people dying and not receiving care. So I think something that's important to point out is there is an asymmetry in what we in the vernacular consider to be violence. Of course, unilaterally, everyone agrees that Luigi Mangione gunning down Brian Thompson in the streets is a violent act. But also denying a cancer patient chemotherapy and thus they die or go into thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical debt that cripples them is also violence. That is violence. And the violence that the private healthcare industry imposes on Americans is unprecedented and is unparalleled. 2/3 of bankruptcies in this country are due to medical debt, are due to people who, through largely no fault of their own, are diagnosed with an illness or have a terrible accident and they can't pay it back. There is no reason that a cancer diagnosis or a medical diagnosis should be a death sentence for financial reasons or be crippling to you. That is insane. And the fact that it is speaks to that. So I do also want to point something out, though, that the reaction to his killing, even from people on the left who are celebrating it, which I don't think is the correct way to go, it highlights this danger of binary thinking. So there's this idea that, there's this proportional response or this equally strong response against the killing of Brian Thompson. So we saw this with, for example, a lot of these people, they made this legitimate grievance. Brian Thompson and United Healthcare have shown a lack of empathy and care for my family member or the family members of thousands, if not millions of people who submit claims to them. Many of them end up dying or going into serious bankruptcy for it. They have shown a lack of empathy and care for them. Therefore, we are going to respond by showing a lack of empathy and care for him and his family. I can understand the appeal there. I can understand the retributive, why should I feel bad for this man who oversaw a company, an insurance company that indirectly, but I don't care about the causal process, killed people. Thousands of people who die of healthcare every year. 44,000 Americans die every single year due to lack of healthcare. So I can understand that response. However, what it does highlight is this false binary of thinking. We can both hold the claim that it is wrong to deny people coverage to their health care, or if someone pays for something, finding every single legal loophole possible to deny them coverage to the point at which you don't have to pay out and one of their family members dies. That is atrocious and awful. It is also atrocious and awful to gun down a man in the street who has a family, who has a wife, who has kids. Both of those things are wrong. And empathy is not a zero-sum game. Just because there is a lack of empathy for these families who are denied coverage and end up dying because of their diagnosis, or not because of their diagnosis, because they're denied care, doesn't mean we can't also have empathy for a wife who no longer has a husband, or kids who no longer have a dad. These things are not mutually exclusive. And we can hold both those things at the same time. And I think it's really important that we do. And there's many examples of this dangers of binary thinking. And I wanted to kind of make this parallel between this case and the response to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the war in Gaza. We've seen a lot of people on the left refuse to come out and condemn the atrocities that happened on October 7th, where, I think it was 1,100 or 1,200 civilians or people were killed. Some of them were military. Regardless, there were many individuals who were killed, who were at a music festival, and people in paragliders came down and executed them. Just like as they were fleeing, they just shot them or pulled them into bushes and executed. They did that, and that's terrible. And there are reports of sexual assault, and there are reports of all of these things. I don't have reason to doubt that. I know a lot of people are just saying, these sexual assault cases never happen. This is also coming from the same people who are like, we need to believe women, we need to take it more seriously. So it's disturbing how often it seems that they don't take that to be the case now. But we see it a lot. It's like, you know what? October 7th was 100% justified because of what Israel has been doing to Palestinians and how they've been subjugating them to apartheid for the past 4 decades, not 4 decades, even longer, ever since probably Israel has been around. And it leads genuinely good people, thoughtful people, to kind of have this moral confusion where the rape and murder of innocent civilians that happened on October 7th is somehow justified now because of this false binary that says that Israel has shown a lack of empathy and care for the lives of Palestinians. Therefore, in response, we're going to show a lack of empathy and care for these Israeli civilians who were killed on October 7th. Once again, we don't have to choose between them. We can both acknowledge that the Palestinians who have been killed since and before October 7th is a terrible tragedy, and Israel needs to stop their campaign of, what the International Court of Justice has deemed as plausible case for genocide. They need to cease that. That, however, doesn't mean that what happened on October 7th was what was justified. The same way that it wasn't justified for Luigi Mangione to kill Brian Thompson, but it's also not justified that United Healthcare operates as a death cult, basically, denying people coverage that they paid for, leading them to either die or be drowning in medical bills to the point at which they declare bankruptcy. So I kind of wanted to point that out, and it's something that I kind of wanted to talk about for a while because I think it demonstrates this. There is this binary thinking, what a lot of people fall into, that it's either one or the other. You have to pick one side or you have to pick the other. And of course, I don't want this to come off as kind of both sidesism of the issue, because I understand it could come off that way. Largely what I'm trying to say here is that, of course, it is the case that the atrocities that the United Healthcare commits by denying people legitimate coverage vastly outweigh the killing of their one CEO. So I'm not trying to say that the harm is equivalent. I'm trying to say that they're both harm. And we don't need to deny the harm, the death that occurred, and the wrongness of the death that occurred to Brian Thompson. It's not like because he was killed, now suddenly things are better. One thing I do want to point out with that case, though, is insurance companies seem to be listening. Adam made this claim before that we have so many means through our democratic processes to solve this issue. And, you can protest in the street and you can make your voice heard. People have been making their voice heard over the shittiness of our healthcare system for a long time. And frankly, it has not really gotten that much better. But this did cause some tangible change. One example of it is Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield was proposing a policy that basically they would only cover the cost of general anesthesia for a set amount of time for certain surgeries and procedures. And basically what that meant is they're gonna figure out, okay, you're getting a root canal, whatever, that's just an example, this procedure is only supposed to take this amount of time, we're only going to cover it for that amount of time because that's what we have to cover. So that would mean that if for reasons that were not your fault, reasons entirely unrelated to you, you're under general anesthesia, let's say the doctor messes up, let's say there's some unforeseen complications, and now suddenly you have to be under general anesthesia for longer because the procedure is taking longer than expected, they wouldn't cover it. You would literally be billed and have to pay in full for that extra hour of anesthesia. Let's say it took 5 hours because of something that was completely unforeseen or even a mistake of the doctor. That is ludicrous. That is atrocious. That is greedy. That is vile. That is morally depraved. And very shortly after the killing of Brian Thompson, Blue Cross Blue Shield rescinded that policy. So I just want to point out that we can talk about how it wasn't justified and how it's not okay to kill people in the street. And I agree, but I don't want to live in a society in which that's how our grievances are dealt with. However, we can't deny that it was effective in causing that change because people have been protesting how fucked up the healthcare industry has been for a long time. But I doubt that calls to Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, I'm sure they were already getting them about their proposed policy on general anesthesia and not covering it, would have been changed, except for the language of violence, which is universal to everyone. So I just want to point that out. It was effective. And largely we see that throughout history. Largely revolutions don't happen on accident. They happen with someone's head in a basket. And, it's a sad reality of the world we live in because we want to believe that we're past that, believe that we are the enlightened ones, that all of the atrocities of history exist in the rearview mirror to never happen again. when, we aren't better. We were just born later. And the reality is we're likely going to face a lot of that in the future. I can't say what it's going to look like. This is not my call to revolution. This is not my take up arms, kill rich people. Of course not. But I do think that it is the case that, these revolutions happen violently. They happen as a show of force. The powerful don't just give up their power willy-nilly. They don't give it up because you vote them out of power. They don't give it up because you ask politely. They are responsive to violence. And we saw that here. So I kind of wanted to get my thoughts on that. I know this has been long-winded. I know we've been paused for a while, and this likely means that we're at like an hour and a half and only about like 27 minutes into this. So this is probably going to be a longer one. And I'm fully prepared for that because I got a lot of thoughts here. So yeah.
What
Continue.
we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
Dude is such a
We're
child.
going to feel very
You will
good.
feel influenced.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad
very
position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a good
Brown,
position.
I
You
was
don't have the
saying-
cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
Okay, the question is,
Jesus.
is Trump favoring Putin? 3, 2, 1.
Unquestionably so. Of course they're going to say not.
Okay.
Trump is very clearly taking Putin's position on this war. He's very clearly playing hardball with Ukraine, and he's gotten nothing from Russia thus far. I think, just to zoom out for a second, Trump has a unique form of narcissism where he's attracted to powerful people. If you guys think he's not narcissistic, you guys are way behind us right now.
I think every politician's narcissistic.
Trump has a unique
I think he's exceptional.
Trump has a unique form of narcissism where he's attracted to powerful people. You can see this when he talks about his love letters with Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un, or when he talks about Vladimir Putin. He comes up with nicknames for Trudeau, but what's his nickname for Putin? He has no nickname for Putin. This proves my point. This dude plays soft
Nicknames?
with Putin. Yeah, Trump's
that's what it's about. I mean, you could say the same thing about Kim Jong-un. He calls him Rocket Man.
We're
Kim
talking about
Jong-un's
Putin right now. We're
relatively
talking about
powerful.
Putin right now.
Okay, the one person he doesn't have a nickname for, same with Xi Jinping.
Because
but
he has
nothing about Rocket Man.
Because he's attracted to power. Vladimir Putin is a source of narcissistic supply for Trump, and Zelensky has that lack of supply. So he feels like he can demean him. He feels like he can deride him in the Oval Office because he views Zelensky as weaker than Putin. This is how Trump operates. I would love to think that Putin has some sort of dirt on Trump, but that's not what it is. Trump has a narcissistic brain, and he's attracted to Putin. But if I can just say one more thing.
Let's go.
I think that Donald Trump is only legitimizing Putin's imperial ambitions when he tries to give a peace deal or sign a peace deal with no security guarantees. This whole debate should center around security guarantees, in my opinion. But
I mean, I think I don't like the word favor because it's like there's a positive connotation. I think what Trump's doing in his relationship with Putin is exactly what I would be doing as a businessman. I think as what he's doing as a businessman. When you're making deals with business, it doesn't matter if you like someone or dislike them, you get along, you don't get along. The number one thing is to maintain a cordial relationship.
he didn't do that with
Okay, so I just want to point this out, and this is this is kind of a tangent, but I have to address it because people are like, Trump is a businessman. He's going to run America like a business. Ignoring the fact that he bankrupted 7 businesses and is objectively a terrible businessman who's just been able to fail upwards because of his wealth and power and status. Regardless, even if he was a good businessman, we do not want to operate our country like it's a business. The post office shouldn't be profitable. The post office isn't profitable. It's not a business. It's a service. It is designed to allow everyone the ability to mail letters and have information sent around the country. That's its priority. Its priority is serving people, not making money. If making money were the priority, then they wouldn't bother sending the post office out to every single rural area. They wouldn't. They really wouldn't. I mean, other private corporations definitely do that, but it is more expensive and it disenfranchises people and disadvantages people who live further away. Government services are designed to help people, not turn a profit. The government should not be run by like a business. Obviously, it should be efficient. We'll get into the conversation of DOGE later, but it should be run primarily as a nonprofit, not as a profit business. And that is the biggest disconnect here. So I'm not thinking that a businessman is really going to solve this problem. It's ludicrous.
Zelensky in the Oval Office.
Well, because here's the thing. If anything happens and things go south and we're at the brink of World War III, America is going to be a lot more afraid of Russia than they're going to be afraid of Ukraine.
You guys realize that
Considering Russia is one of the powerhouses of the world, maintaining a cordial relationship with them is a lot.
It's not a cordial relationship. It's a cowardly relationship. It's saying that since Russia poses more of a threat, we should be more lenient on them because, things would be worse if they got mad at us. That's cowardice. That's not being cordial at all. It's also emboldening Russia. What would make Russia more likely to expand their imperial terrain, or expand their imperial reign, rather, or tirade? Cowardice. Feeling that the U.S. will not stand up to them. Being too cordial. Sometimes you do have to lay down the rules. Lay down the rule, like put your foot down. Trump has the ability to do it. He does it all the time. He does this strongman persona and personality with so many other people, like Adam pointed out, like he's doing with Zelensky right now, but he would never have this conversation with Putin because Putin holds that amount of power. Trump is a coward. Trump likes to wield his power against those who have less power, but against those who might have an equal amount of power, or in which it would actually be courageous instead of overpowering to stand up to, he's not going to do it because he's a coward. So no, this idea of cordiality should not be prioritized over, standing up for what's right and standing up against Russia.
More crucial than maintaining a relationship with Ukraine. Ukraine has just taken advantage of the United States, of our hundreds of billions of dollars.
How?
And they've done nothing with it. Zelensky's went and got all his flashy things, and he's been living a good life.
Can I jump in
how
real
are
quick?
they taking advantage?
Are you fucking kidding? I'm sorry. Luke is just so stupid. I'm sorry. I don't want to be pejorative on purpose, but he generally, most Chandler as well, they just don't know about foreign policy. They don't know about these issues. They're just talking out of their ass. He doesn't. Ask what military aid we've given to Ukraine. I think they talk about this a little bit. They think it's primarily money. It's not. It's weapons. It's sending them old shit we don't need anymore. Oh my God. Sorry.
They're actively at war. They were attacked by Russia. That's
But
not
why
taking
is
advantage
not
of
all that
US
money
aid.
is being used
Can I
to
say
military and aid?
We're not
What do you
sending
mean? Where
money
is it?
over there. 80% of what we
Thank you.
sent are military. It's military equipment, old stockpiled equipment that we now
Not all
don't
of
have
it
to
is
dock out.
old.
I'm
Some
80.
of it is actually
about
new
80% of it.
experimental tech.
But here's the thing: it's
ahead.
stockpiled military equipment that we would have had to dispose of anyways, and it's very expensive to dispose of. It's toxic. This military equipment. So rather than disposing of it, we send it over to our allies, and our allies have been using it to protect their border against Russia. And I just want to say, we can all agree, if World War III does start, the onus would fall on Russia because they're the one that started this invasion, and likely Putin has more imperial ambitions. Can we just say that if World War III were to start, the onus would not fall on Ukraine?
I mean, I don't think there's any you can.
Luke doesn't know enough about this issue to have that opinion on it. He doesn't really know what you just said. He doesn't know who's responsible for what. Bro just got here. Okay? It's that simple.
Make that claim.
You can,
in
very
such-
clearly.
I
in
mean, if
such
Russia
certainty.
openly
Absolutely.
attacks the Ukrainian border and begins a war that turns into World War III, it started with Russia's attack on Ukraine.
Okay, but I mean, I think in that instance, it's going to be important that we maintain a cordial relationship
I
with
disagree
Russia.
with this as well.
Well, now you're at war. You don't have to maintain a cordial relationship.
the idea
Yeah, but it's
that-
better to be at war having cordial relationship with Russia versus Russia being our enemy in.
He's just saying we should ally with Russia because they're more powerful. I'm sorry, is this what determines who we should be allied with? Who's more powerful? Yeah, I guess so. We should just team up with Russia, get rid of Ukraine, and Russia will just continue to take over and rebuild the Soviet Union like Putin has shared aspirations of doing. So it's ridiculous.
But Russia
a
is our
hopeful
enemy.
war that doesn't happen.
But if a country were to start World War III, I would hope that they would be the enemy of the United States.
Correct.
Can I just
for
say,
starting a world war.
Well, I don't think Russia's our friend, but you need to have cordial relationships just as we have with that we're hoping to have with China and these other powerhouses.
So
in
it's
the
funny that
world.
you say that we need to have cordial relationships with Russia,
But not
when it
Zelensky.
came to Canada, we don't need to have cordial relationships and it's okay to make jokes. When it comes to Ukraine, it's okay to make jokes and we don't have to have cordial relationships and it's okay to fight. So I mean, that kind of goes into the point of him favoring him, because the only one who he is willing to have a cordial relationship with is Russia. But in all of these other instances, he's openly dismissive, he's openly offensive, he's openly insulting, and I think that that does show a sense of favorship.
All right, let's jump in on Trump and the Russia connection, because as cordial as it's kind of like an inverse thing. Like, the more cordial Trump is with a country, the sterner he is with that
Oh
country.
my
Yes,
God.
Vladimir
Oh
Putin,
my
during
God.
the
Oh my God. This fucking just like dick riding is insane. This just jumping through hoops. You don't understand. When Trump says something really angrily, he means it really, really soft and calm. And when he's calm, he means it stern. Have you ever thought about this? Why the fuck doesn't Trump just say what he means and means what he says? Maybe he's not this master manipulator, mastermind. Maybe the Occam's razor explanation here is he's a fucking idiot who is just a narcissist and is attracted to Putin because he expresses the same strongman authoritarian tendencies that Trump aspires to have. That's more parsimonious than this idea that, it's the opposite. Whatever Trump says, it's the opposite. He says this, it's a joke. He does this, he really means the opposite. Why are you twisting yourself into a rhetorical pretzel to defend this guy? It's frankly just embarrassing to watch.
election cycle said he would have endorsed and voted for Biden if he could have.
He's playing games, dude.
Okay,
Hold on, wait a second. Hold on. So Chandler is taking at face value Putin's claim that he would have voted for Harris in the election. However, he's saying that we shouldn't take Trump's actions on their face when he's strong versus weak for someone because he might mean the opposite. But we should take Putin at his word, of course, because Putin never lies, but Trump might be doing some strategic thing. But of course, Putin's not doing a strategic thing of trying to signal some support in some way that benefits him. Like, really? Like, the double standards and lack of coherence here is not surprising, but is worth pointing out.
Let me say this. Yes, it's Putin. But then at that same time, he said, okay, well, Kamala's here. She laughs funny. Biden endorsed her. I like her. At that same forum where he was speaking about...
What? How did we get to Biden? I'm confused. Let me go back. I just want to hear what he was saying.
Okay, let me say this. Yes, it's Putin. But then at that same time, he said, okay, well, Kamala's here. She laughs funny. Biden endorsed her. I like her. At that same forum where he was speaking about this, when asked, how does this really affect you? Putin said, well, honestly, Trump was the worst for Russia. There's more sanctions and everything than we had ever seen. And Biden was way easier on Russia. At the same time that Biden was canceling the Keystone XL pipeline between America and Canada, he lifted the sanctions that Trump had placed on Russia, forbidding them from building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline between Russia and Germany. That was just a few months before Russia announced their invasion of Ukraine. I'm not trying to blame this at all on Biden. Obviously.
So, this is ridiculous. He's taking Vladimir Putin at his literal word, as if Putin does not have motive to lie and sabotage and manipulate like he's been doing this whole time, but that we shouldn't take Trump at his literal word. It's just moving the goalpost all over wherever it suits him best.
What Russia is doing is wrong, and they are being very aggressive, and they are in the wrong on this. We all agree on that.
Yes.
But
I don't know if Luke agrees on that. Can we not say that everyone agrees? I don't think Luke has a strong claim here whatsoever at all. I think he just sees that a lot of Democrats support Ukraine, so he views that as a proxy for I shouldn't support Ukraine and therefore support Russia. I genuinely think that's probably what's going on in his brain right now.
Also say is that Russia was capitalizing on what they viewed as a weak presidency to push forward into Ukraine. Just like they had with the Obama administration in Crimea.
So going
and
into
on
that,
top
if
of that,
Russia's capitalizing on what they view as a weak presidency, why would the response to that to be to exclusively be cordial with Putin and no one else?
Because, and like we've said many times, and like I just mentioned, is that when it comes to a fellow superpower, you have to tread lightly.
Other than Canada.
Well, Canada's not really.
Or China.
Or China.
Canada's
Really
not
a superpower.
Canada's
Or
not an
China's a
adversary.
superpower.
Canada is not a
I know,
superpower.
but I'm saying China.
So can I just debunk the idea that Biden was way stronger on, can I debunk the idea that Biden was less strong on Russia? Russia was frozen out of the global order for the past 3 years. Nobody would talk or meet with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin was literally like pushed out. They were shutting him.
Yes.
Trump has already brought him back into the fold. And what has he gotten? Trump has gotten tricked by Putin. Trump stopped sharing intelligence, U.S. intelligence, with Ukraine. You remember that happening a few days ago, right?
You see how Luke just like scoffs and disagrees, but I'm sure he has no idea why he disagrees. It's just Trump bad, therefore must be wrong. Like, I just, ugh.
Keep going.
Right when Trump stopped sharing U.S. intelligence with Ukraine. Say yes, that happened, right?
Keep going.
Just say yes, that happened.
No, but just keep going. I'm trying to hear you out here because I have something I want to say.
Putin took advantage of that opportunity to push forward. He literally made Trump look like an idiot. Trump stopped intelligence sharing. Putin took advantage of that. Off the back of that, he killed hundreds of Ukrainians. So the idea that Putin is negotiating in good faith is dumb. The idea that we should have a cordial relationship with Putin, who his entire existence is antithetical to the West, to our ideals. Putin's to his very core. Like, if you did surgery and looked into this guy's heart, he's just anti-Western.
Look at the way Zelensky came into the Oval Office. One, this is something that I kind of take to heart. He comes in and he's not even wearing a suit. He's not coming in showing respect to these individuals.
Aw, it's so bad. He's not wearing a suit. It's so sad. Meanwhile, Trump just fucking derides him and is the most disrespectful motherfucker in the office. But oh God, at least he's wearing a suit, you know? If he wasn't wearing a suit, that's the real crime here, is the fucking clothes he was wearing. Give me a break. What are these priorities right now? We're talking about the safety and security of the world, and you're like, well, maybe we shouldn't support him because he wasn't wearing the clothes that I like. This is why these people should not be taken seriously. This is where their priorities lie. He's just basing his whole argument on vibes. He doesn't like Zelensky's vibe. He likes Trump's vibe. These people are voting and determining what they like based on vibes and not facts. Like, Luke is the example of that. I mean, I don't want to impugn his Christianity, but like, I don't know, when you abandon rationality in service of religion, clearly it seeps into other aspects of your life where you're abandon the need for evidence or critical thinking in those domains. So, yeah.
He's making jokes with the
Elon
conversation with Trump.
Zelensky is an elected
and
official.
so it's like this guy.
Oh yeah.
Not just an actor
that's such a difference.
Politically, he literally is an actor. His background is an actor.
Number one, so is
he's putting
Trump,
on a show throughout
So
the
is
whole
Ronald
thing.
Reagan's, by the way.
So is Trump as like a reality show guy, but does it equally bother you when Elon Musk leads a cabinet meeting with a baseball cap on and like a meme t-shirt that says like, I am become meme, whatever the hell it said? Does that bother you equally? He's leading a cabinet meeting?
Elon Musk is not the governor a president of a nation.
But you just said that it's disrespectful when someone doesn't wear a suit in the Oval Office, and every single
Not
day
in the Oval
Elon
Office
Musk
specifically.
doesn't wear a
And
suit.
by the
I'm
way,
saying
Goalpost
Zelensky's
moves.
individuals
So
about
when you're
such
meeting
a
with Trump, you should wear a suit.
And-
Unless you're Elon Musk.
Unless
I
you're
think
Elon
when
Musk.
you're the president of a country and you're meeting involving something as serious as this, and to be honest, Elon Musk is a character. It doesn't excuse it, but Elon Musk
Yeah. So you don't understand. Elon just has this sick personality, bro, that excuses him not wearing a suit, but Zelensky, no, he needs to wear a suit. What is this goalpost shifting? This goalpost shifting is like insane. Like, the cognitive dissonance is wild. Every time he gets pointed out on how he's inconsistent, he just is throwing everything at the wall and sees what sticks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Elon gets a pass for being a character, but Zelensky wearing the military uniform in his country while his country is at war is not? Like, what? Huh? I don't even know. It's just frustrating.
You just said
Elon
Zelensky's a
Musk.
character. Well, do you know why Zelensky doesn't wear a suit? It's because his country is in war and he wants to show solidarity with the people on the front lines. You want him to. You know what was so funny?
That's true.
Zelensky
See, this is the thing is, Luke is just like, no way. I've never heard that before from my Fox News and the right-wing sources, so it must not be true. Like, is that the reaction of him? It's immediate skepticism. It's never a desire to learn. It's never being receptive to new information. It's, that goes against what I've learned and been told before, therefore I don't believe it. Like,
walked in there with a suit on, I guarantee Luke would be saying, look at Zelensky's spending all of our money on these lavish suits. Look at this.
No, I would.
No matter what would
probably
happen.
that's a good point.
But can you-
I'd have a little bit more.
I
you
would
underst-
admire that because last time he showed up without a suit on, Trump said, hey, come back next time with a suit. It would have shown good faith. It would have shown that Zelensky is actually
You don't
trying
think
to push
Zelensky's in
this
good
war.
faith? Zelensky's the one who agreed to the peace deal this week, and who didn't?
I think Zelensky's a joke.
So this
You're
is
a
all
joke,
just
Luke.
incredibly backwards, and I think you guys.
You're a joke. You don't understand any of these issues. Like, you're parroting the talking points. I'm sorry, you just don't.
They're very sucked up in right-wing propaganda. Can I ask you, do you understand why Zelensky cannot sign a peace deal without security guarantees?
What I understand is that we have given billions upon billions of dollars
What a non-answer.
in the form of weapons. And
You got to be a politician, bro. You're weaving around my question.
Can you just answer his question?
That's
Can you
really
answer my
good.
question?
What I
Give
do
us the
understand is this, and answers a completely different question. Impressive.
Direct answer. Do you understand why security
You've given
guarantees
zero
are
direct
important?
answers for most
Ask
of
me
the
whatever,
points
man.
we've brought up.
Ask me
Why
whatever.
is it
You
that
can answer it.
America?
I don't
Why
know.
is it
You
that
can
America
tell me.
is almost unilaterally in support of Ukraine?
We are not. The EU,
Absolutely
European
not.
Union has put in more than us.
Yeah, maybe if you combine it all, maybe possibly, but like this has been almost entirely us.
We contribute the most, unless you include other countries.
And we're
Other than
try-
the fact that if you combine it all, that
and
you
we're
just said
trying we're trying to spread this around. We're trying to make it so that this isn't just going to continue going on forever. Because if we want it to go on forever, that's just going to kill millions upon millions of people. And the one thing that we want to happen is for less people to die. We want this war to end. And you guys were saying, oh, well, Trump said he would end the war on day one. It's not as simple as that. And I think it wasn't a good thing for Trump to campaign on these things ending on day one. But what I think is, yeah.
you
But
go.
yes, I'm going to be honest with you here. Russia is in such a position that unless you want to start World War III right now, they're going to get
You
something.
likely have to give Russia some land, yes, but you also have to give Ukraine some security guarantees at the same time. And I keep saying
and
that.
I don't disagree with you.
But,
and I
but
think it
Trump
would be great.
Trump refuses to give explicit security guarantees. All he did was this mineral deal where he gets half of Ukraine's minerals, and there are no actual explicit guarantees. That's basically just conning Ukraine. Like, hey, I know that you're in the middle of a war. I know that your country's being destroyed, but we want half of your resources, and in return, you get nothing.
Okay, I think
This is true, and it's also important to point out a couple things here with the war. For one, there was a agreement made in the 90s, I believe, that Ukraine would denuclearize. They would get rid of their nuclear weapons in the interest of nuclear proliferation, for the promise that the West, including the United States, would defend them should there be a time of war with an ally or a nation, not an ally, with an adversary that had nuclear weapons. So by not supporting Ukraine, or if we were to stop supporting Ukraine, we would just be leaving them high and dry after we agreed to support them in exchange for them denuclearizing. On top of that, this idea that somehow Ukraine is prolonging the war and causing more fighting and leading to more people dying is fucking ludicrous. It's a whole thing before. It's like, I don't know if they're going to bring it up again more, but they've already talked about this. It's this idea that, well, clearly we're giving weapons to Ukraine and we're giving stuff and the war's still going. So clearly, if nothing's changing, that means that, clearly what we're doing isn't helping. This is the fallacy, and this is, I think, something Ruth Bader Ginsburg said in her dissenting opinion in Shelby County v. Holder, which was about voting rights, where she basically said that this logic is basically like closing your umbrella in the rain because you're not getting wet. The reason that the reason that the war is still going on, and the reason that Russia has not won, is because we have continued to give them weapons and arms and support. If we didn't do that, if we pulled back, this war would be over immediately and Russia would steamroll Ukraine. And then what would they do? They wouldn't stop there. Then they would go up against NATO ally Poland. Then they attack Poland, and then suddenly Poland invokes Article 5, and that's how a world war starts. A world war doesn't start with us continuing to support Ukraine. The world war doesn't start by us continuing to support Ukraine. The world war starts by us stopping supporting Ukraine, because then Russia will steamroll Ukraine, and Putin will continue his imperial ambition of rebuilding the Soviet Union. And that's when World War III starts. So that's why supporting Ukraine right now is so important. Because if we don't and we just give Putin Ukraine, it's not like he's going to stop there. He's going to keep going and going and going. And that's how we get ourselves into World War III. Plain and simple.
that the general thing that we can all agree on is that war is bad. We do not want to see Putin invade Ukraine anymore. We do not want to see the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. And we hope that Putin will agree to a ceasefire deal and honor that agreement.
I agree. You agree?
Sounds good.
Yes.
We're all on the same page.
Okay.
Is Elon Musk's DOGE a benefit to America? 3, 2,
We're going to have a split.
1.
2-2. Who would have thought?
So, from our red people here, I kind of want to get an understanding of what you guys consider a benefit to America, because I know what DOGE has done, and I'm trying to understand what you guys think has been harmful. So for instance, Trump said during the joint session of Congress, $8 million to cut transgender mice, and people said, oh, it's transgenic. It was actually $8 million for transgender mice. Numerous other things, for instance, the Social Security going to somebody that was the age of 320 years old, that was real. We did eliminate that, and we're tracing to where that money has gone. How is this not a benefit?
Hold on, they're going to talk about this in a second. For one, transgenic is not transgender. I think, if I remember correctly, I think Naima, if I'm saying that correctly, talks about the difference between the two. So it's fucking ridiculous. You're talking about transgender mice. Two words sound the same, and Republicans have like a fucking like hissy fit about it. Like, this is a Freedom Fries level moment where they tried to rename. If you guys don't know about it, they had basically during 9/11, or not during 9/11, but during the war on terror and during the war in Iraq, France came out against the war. And basically what happened was the United States, not the United States, but there was a campaign in the United States to rename French fries to Freedom Fries because they merely included the word French. Even though French fries are not French cuisine, have nothing to do with France, were not invented by France. They have no connection other than the name, but the name was enough to have conservatives put their, have their panties in a bunch and go cuckoo crazy. And that's kind of the same thing that's happening here with this transgenic mice. They hear anything that's remotely close to transgender, and they go crazy. I mean, I don't know when they're going to start being against transportation. Are we talking about trans people now? Transatlantic? Maybe they'll start caring about the transatlantic slave trade. Maybe they'll be against the transatlantic slave trade if we tell them it has something to do with trans and transgender. But
and we see that if you add all these things up, it is...
Oh, I forgot. I wanted to say that. He said that there was one case of Social Security going to someone who's 320 years old. First off, I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah. I'm gonna even entertain that it is true. One case of Social Security going to someone who's 320 years old, or that like is being wasted, is negligible. Of course it shouldn't happen, but that's not indicative of widespread fraud and abuse. It is an example of fraud and mismanagement, but the government is notoriously inefficient. We waste millions upon billions of dollars on inefficiencies every year. The DOD, the Department of Defense, has failed an audit over and over and over, billions of dollars that they just literally can't account for. Is DOGE going to the Department of Defense? Is DOGE cutting? Is DOGE auditing the Department of Defense? No. What are they going after? They're going after foreign aid programs and your Social Security. And not the biggest contributor to waste, fraud, and abuse, which is the Department of Defense. This is how you know it's not serious. This is how you know it's designed to make rich people richer, because they're going after two things that they view as not beneficial to rich people, which is Social Security. They're going after your Social Security money, and they're going after foreign aid, because I guess they don't want any of our money, even though foreign aid makes up 1% of our annual budget. They want to slash that shit too. Instead of the large percentage, like 17 or 18% of the budget that goes towards military spending, a large of which just literally can't be accounted for. It's insane.
Billions upon billions of dollars worth of savings.
First of all, they have not illustrated that it was billions and billions.
They've not,
we can talk about that more, but I think that Elon Musk is unreliable and he's reckless in what he's doing. So I want more government efficiency. We can all agree. Step one, we all want the government to be more efficient. No one wants there to be waste, fraud, and abuse. So we can all start with that axiom, right? But the way that Elon Musk is doing it is not only reckless, but it's illegal. Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse. So when Elon Musk is using the executive branch to cut things and shutter entire agencies like USAID, you are subverting Congress. You are subverting their power of the purse. That's why people, have you guys seen those town halls of people yelling at their representatives?
I do also want to say you gave a lot of examples that were on cutting aid and subsidiaries to non-American, like USAID is not working on actively this country, but DOGE has also fired a significant number of VA workers. DOGE has also fired a significant number of FAA workers. DOGE has fired a significant number of national parks workers. DOGE has fired a significant number of IRS workers. I mean, DOGE is not just cutting USAID, but what DOGE has not done is taken away money that was going towards subsidiaries for Tesla, which I think is kind of interesting and very much a conflict of interest on Elon Musk's part. Also, to the point about the transgender mice, can we just clear this up? transgenic.
Yes, sir.
Not the same
Transgenic, but
thing.
they actually
But, I
were
mean,
for
if-
transgender mice.
No, it's not transgender. It's
yes.
transgenic.
I know,
Which is
but
not
even if
the
we
same
back up,
thing.
though-
Some studies, there was one for transgender mice.
Even if we back up, what else are you going to
No,
do
it
studies
wasn't.
on? You do studies on mice. This is what you do. I mean, you do them on animals. You guys are acting like transgender mice is absurd in and of itself, but you can say like, oh, $4 million for Adderall mice. Yeah, they were doing Adderall studies on animals, but
if it was that, maybe it would have been more acceptable.
But that
I
is what it
You
is.
need
Because
research.
the definition, hold on, pause.
Okay.
The definition of transgenic is not the
Thank
same
you.
as transgender.
Oh, I
They are
know.
not
They're two
transitioning-
separate studies.
Can I
There
finish
was one for transgender mice.
talking? Can I finish talking?
If you want to.
Thanks. They are not the same thing. Transgenic does not mean transgender. What transgenic is doing is putting DNA of humans into mice so that we can study the effects of different medicines on mice and how they would act on the human body. That is a necessity because I would like to take medicine that is affecting me in the way that the medicine is supposed to. And we need to have studies that do that. So going away from the transgenic mice, I do want to address like DOGE fired the workers who protect our military codes, specifically the nuclear launch codes, and
is
then
true.
had to rehire all of them because no
Yep.
one else knows how to do that.
Correct.
That is inefficient.
Reckless.
To fire workers without actually understanding what they do, only to realize that we actually need them, is inefficient.
can I build on
think-
top of that?
Okay,
Please do.
if you guys want to just
Did
keep
you guys
going.
hear
Yes.
about the nuclear stockpile story? Because you listed all of your stories. Did you hear about the nuclear stockpile story in
I'm
particular?
not familiar with it. What
Okay,
surprised
so
me?
DOGE and Elon Musk fired a bunch of nuclear stockpile workers, as
Yes.
Naima said, and then they realized 24 hours later, and you can look this up, these were uniquely qualified, highly specialized people who were maintaining and taking care of our nuclear stockpiles. So the Friday, they fired them on Thursday. They reached back out on Friday, but the nuclear stockpile people were locked out of their federal emails, so there was a bunch of downtime where our stockpiles couldn't be maintained. Two questions. Is that efficient, and is that helping America?
No.
Okay, so
It's also deeply dangerous if you think about it. I mean, fortunately, there wasn't a nuclear attack or there wasn't, any imminent attack on the United States during that time period. But if that were the case, we were locked out of our nuclear stockpiles. We were largely defenseless. Even our nuclear missile defense systems that are designed to shoot down nuclear attacks were out of commission because we didn't have the people there. If you want to talk about a threat to national security, it's not a fucking college kid who's protesting against a genocide. It's literally leaving our nuclear stockpiles unmanned and down so that we are vulnerable to attack from other countries. That's a fucking threat to national security. But of course, it was never about national security. It was about deporting people who we don't agree with.
Okay, she's answering.
I just
or-
want to talk because you mentioned about it being illegal. So it actually is not illegal what he's doing.
Oh,
This
enlighten
was
us on the
brought
law,
into law by Obama's administration. It's what we call is a special agency employee, special government employee. And so presidents have the right to appoint individuals to advise them throughout their administration. They get a 130-day period to basically run out their tasks. The only point of which what Elon is doing would be illegal is if he extends that 130 days. And so President Biden had the same what they call unelected bureaucrats. I forgot her name. Anita Dunn was like his right-hand woman.
His advisor, yeah.
She was doing exactly what Trump is doing
No.
in the advising sense.
Well, can I just
the
clarify?
advi-
my
in the
contention wasn't
advising
with the fact
sense.
that Elon Musk is an advisor for 130 days is that he's going around Article 1, which says that Congress can appropriate and allocate funds as Congress deems necessary. Congress has the ability to allocate funds with the power of the purse. Elon Musk unilaterally using the executive branch to shutter agencies like USAID or
But
other
he's
agencies.
not the one making the cuts.
He is. Him and his DOGE squad.
He's advising.
Oh, so it went through Congress.
He's advising.
Oh, so if it didn't go through Congress, then
He's
it's illegal.
advising to the elected officials that are
In the
allowed
executive
to be
branch.
making these
So
cuts.
who
No.
fired?
The USAID workers.
Okay.
Yes, who
I-
fired them? Who was it? if
It wasn't
wasn't?
Congress.
He advised for the fire.
So it was the
He
executive
didn't
branch.
do the action.
Dude, Luke is so fucking stupid. It's painful. I'm sorry. Like, he just doesn't. He's just not there. Like, he just doesn't know this stuff. Like, this is painful. Like, I don't know. I think Chandler's very disingenuous, but at least, like, he's semi-competent in this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, at least he's done enough research to make his bullshit sound like, I don't know, legitimate, unless you look at it for 2 seconds. But Luke, on the face of it, it's just painful.
Fire.
So he advised his like 18-year-old DOGE dudes, or who did the firing? Because it was the
Whoever the
executive
elected
branch.
official is that's ahead of it.
Okay.
Yeah, who
So
happens
if,
to be President
If he
Donald
was the
Trump.
one coming in and doing the cuts, that would constitute a need for an elected official. He's simply advising these individuals to do that.
There's no idea what's
But
going
here's
on.
the thing. Okay, so for the nuclear thing,
Yeah.
that is bad. It's
bad.
great. And I'm going to agree with you right there. And I think it's
appreciate
great
it.
that you mention it. And I think it's great that we can acknowledge that, oh my gosh, if we cut things that don't need to be cut, we need to figure out and make sure those things are not cut. Here's the problem. The government is so massive and so wasteful and so inefficient that it is almost impossible to tell the fat from the muscle here. We can't tell what's actually important and what's actually pushing our nation forward and worthy of tax dollars.
So fat and muscle, if you're trying to get rid of the fat, is the best idea to put a bomb inside of it and blow everything up? No. Like, what is this type of argument? The government is so massive and inefficient that we just have to blow the whole thing up. And yeah, we're going to get rid of some good stuff as well, but it's just so necessary to get rid of the bad stuff. This is a terrible argument. Like, absolutely not. I am not in favor. And I don't think a majority of Americans, let's poll them. A majority of Americans, do you think that if it is, in order to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, that includes kicking VA individuals off their healthcare plans, cutting people off of Social Security who might legitimately want it or not want it, who paid for it, as well as like firing the people who manage our nuclear arsenal? If that's your step towards getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, you're really fucking bad at your job, and you should be fired. That is not the way we go about it.
Versus what is, something that's condoms for Africa, if that makes sense.
Oh my
But the
God.
bigger point
Oh
here,
my
and
God. First off, how much do you fucking think condoms cost? Now, granted, I don't even know if we're funding condoms in Africa, but like, who fucking cares? Like, genuinely, just tell me how much we're funding condoms in Africa. If we are, like, okay, God forbid we prevent other people in Africa from getting sexually transmitted diseases, which is obviously always a benefit to us, because then less of the foreign aid money that we're spending has to go to HIV prevention or something like that. Like, you're acting like these things are ludicrous, when in fact they have tangible benefits to our country and the world as a whole.
your point about Article 1 is completely moot, because here's the thing.
Oh, here we go.
Article 1 is important because, yes, Congress is the purse of the country, but they give money to the executive branch for the executive branch to operate. Who was the leader of the executive branch? The President of the United States. President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden created the Campaign to Cut Waste in 2011 or so, and they did exactly that, but only barely. I think they cut something like $50 billion and then it fizzled out. Department of Government Efficiency is estimated to have already cut somewhere in the billions past
true.
that.
I just don't think that's true.
Okay, we don't
don't
have
pull
the
numbers
we
out
don't
of
have
nowhere.
the number.
Hold on, we don't have the numbers. Cites a number, is challenged on the number, and says we don't have a number. Chandler, what the fuck, dude? Like, huh?
Yet because of how massive the entire system is. It's like doing
Oh
surgery.
my-
And
It's
it's a
not.
surgery on like a giant. So you cut one artery, it might be bad.
But
You
he's
can fuse
not
it back
doing
together.
surgery. He's like lit
Blowing
the
the whole thing
on fire.
up.
And
Yeah.
if you lit the entire thing on fire, there'd be anarchy. There'd be no more anything.
What the Elon?
We're not there yet, but if he keeps going and he keeps firing people who look over or ensure our nuclear arsenal is kept safe, yeah, that can be anarchy. Yeah, that can be nuclear winter. Yeah, we're going to kick people off of their healthcare plans and people are not going to have their government jobs. Yeah, we're not going to have a functional post office or a military or an office of government accountability office, which we already have. Like, what are we talking about?
It's not what's happening.
You know, I
And-
will
and-
say
and-
to you, as a Trump supporter, if I were you, I really would not be a fan of what Elon Musk is doing because it's undermining your president.
I think overall, the Department of Government Efficiency is going to have some growing pains as it starts to become a real thing. And it's the whole point of it is that it's going to be temporary. We're not trying to destroy the entire federal government. We're not trying to dismantle everything. Obviously, there are going to be mistakes. There are going to be things where it's like, okay, maybe we should keep that. The measles thing, the nuclear stockpile thing,
Measles
the Ebola research thing. Even he acknowledged how absurd it was
Probably
that,
not
was
good.
cut.
Probably not
Not good. And the whole point, and the reason I
The
make
veterans thing.
the reason I make the analogy about the surgery on a giant is because of how bloated our entire government is, that if you cut one thing, it might cut three extra things. You don't know.
There's a reason that there is something called surgical precision. The fact that you think surgery as an analogy works here is insane. Surgery is meticulous. Surgery is done intentionally with precision. Surgeons don't just be like, well, yeah, you have a problem here. I'm just gonna cut everything, or I'm just gonna blow everything up because I don't know what the problem is. I guess maybe a better analogy here would maybe be chemotherapy, because chemotherapy kills both healthy and cancer and non-cancerous cells, which is why chemotherapy leads to people going bald. But surgery is a uniquely terrible example here.
That you meant to cut, you reattach those things, they keep going. One day of these people technically not being employed is not a big deal because people can go on vacation sometimes.
Oh
like
my
people
God.
aren't working every single day. If you
Bro, what? Like, are you pull out the vacation? No, dude, you don't understand. It's actually okay if we fire the people who oversee the safety of our nuclear arsenal because they can just fucking go to the beach, dude. Huh? The problem is not that they don't have jobs necessarily. The problem is that we have a nuclear arsenal that is not being meticulously watched. These are nuclear weapons. Of course there should be people monitoring them. Of course our nuclear arsenal being unmonitored, even for a period of 24 hours, is a serious issue. Absolutely. Like, what? I can't take Chandler seriously at all. Vacation? Like, oh my God.
miss one day, that doesn't mean that suddenly measles is back, Ebola is back, our nukes are exploding. It means that we're working.
Well, fortunately. However, if we were to be attacked during that time, fine. You know what the thing is? Is that what if Russia had access to some of our intelligence? What if an adversary was spying on us and found out that our nuclear defenses were down because the individuals tasked with maintaining them had been temporarily fired, and they capitalized on that and attacked us during that time of vulnerability? Once again, real threats to national security conservatives don't care about, but these amorphous threats to national security, like, I don't know, fucking brown people who say things you don't agree with, then suddenly that's where the line needs to be drawn. Ridiculous.
To make this country a little bit more efficient, one step at a time. There might be some missteps, there might be some miscommunications, but in the end, if it saves even one taxpayer, let's say 10 cents on their taxes, as it adds up, then I say it's worth it.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I still disagree with your entire thesis. I think surgery, something that is necessary with surgery, is precision.
There we
You
go.
have surgical precision when you do things.
I
and
forgot
that's not
Adam
what
brought
Elon
this
Musk
point
is
up. I didn't
doing.
mean to steal
So
it
there
from
is a
him.
trade-off. So if you're saying that we're saving Americans 10 cents, what's the trade-off?
It's just a number.
Is it 10 cents at the expense
It
of
was
our
a number
veterans'
you
hotline?
brought
No,
up,
I'm-
motherfucker. Like, I don't. Chandler brings up a number, or like doesn't bring up a number, and he's like, we don't know the numbers. Why'd you bring up that number? Dog, you brought up 10 cents. You said if something saves 10 cents, it's worth it. I don't think leaving our nuclear arsenal unmonitored for 24 hours is worth saving 10 fucking cents, motherfucker. Like, sorry to swear that much, but like, really? Are we serious?
Willing to make that trade-off.
Here we go. Kanye West says he's a Nazi.
Oh, Jesus.
Kanye West says he loves Hitler. Now what, bitch? Kanye West
Wait,
says-
hold on. Can we go back to that for a second? I love how they had to censor bitch, but not Hitler. Like, what? It's actually really funny. Or they didn't even censor.
Here we go. Kanye West says he.
They didn't have to censor Nazi or Hitler, but they had to censor bitch. I'm sorry, that's just actually kind of funny. Ridiculous, but funny.
He's a Nazi. Kanye West says he loves Hitler. Now what, bitch? Kanye West says Hitler was so fresh. That's
Christ.
crazy. All right, so the question is, should Kanye West be banned from X? 3, 2, 1.
I'm the odd one out.
Wow.
It's okay.
I can jump in first.
I do agree with you, but it's okay.
I don't even have a strong opinion on whether he should be banned. I think ultimately it's the decision of the people who own X if they want advertisers on
What
their app
should they
or if
do,
they want
yeah.
Kanye West glazing Hitler on their app. It's definitely the decision of the people who own X, so Elon Musk. Broadly speaking, the reason I agreed is because there should be slightly stricter, maybe a lot more strict content moderation on Twitter. Twitter, like 4 years ago, was actually not that bad, but it seems like Elon completely removed all of the guardrails of content moderation, and now it literally feels like Nazi Germany when I'm scrolling through Twitter. I don't even follow these right-wing accounts, and right-wing accounts are at the top of my feed, so.
Yeah. I mean, just as a business model, like I used to use Twitter and I don't now because it's like not fun. Like it's
Same
just
here.
hateful
Yeah.
and mean.
I don't use it.
And so it's kind of like, if you want people, like what kind of platform are you trying to create? But at the same time, I do kind of fear censorship. Do I think that Kanye should be censored? Low-key, yeah. He's awful and crazy and needs to be on some kind of meds. But at the same time, again, with this whole slippery slope thing, I'm afraid that, right now, Elon Musk owns Twitter. Twitter could pass on to the hands of other people. And I don't think, corporations, especially social media corporations, have become such a huge platform for so many people to express their views. And I'm afraid that if corporations have the power to censor people without that same due process that they would be awarded if they were just saying it in a public space, that it can kind of just hurt our ability to discuss and share our opinions and views.
Can I ask you, would you guys have chosen green if the question was, should Kanye get a 24-hour ban to disincentivize future Nazi behavior? Nope. You still don't think a 24-hour ban?
I would have voted green. I would have done that.
So what's your
It's a 24-hour slap on the wrist. It's not going to change anything.
It could disincentivize future behavior.
It's not for Kanye.
Not with Kanye.
Thank you.
He's
Okay,
so
that would embolden
crazy.
him.
Yeah.
It's not even about Kanye, it's just about the broader
So,
Twitter.
and exactly to that point, I want to widen it more from this just Kanye. X has a platform has changed significantly. I enjoy the platform more, but I also know that there's a good amount of people that enjoy it less. But there's also a good amount of people that enjoy it more. Those that enjoy it less have the free market opportunity to go to Mastodon or Blue Sky or whatever platform of the month, just like conservatives had done with Gitter, Gab, Parler. I was on all of those for a period of time when those were starting to pop off and then wane. Even now with True Social, there are always the opportunity for alternative platforms that want to be more strict about their content moderation or less strict to certain groups. That's always something that can happen. But I'm starting to get of the opinion that major platforms like X, Instagram, and things of that nature are what's called the new public square. And the public square comes from the idea of that it's the idea of freedom of speech. If somebody's standing in the square of the city and they're holding up a sign and it says something like something crazy, like maybe something that Kanye said, like for instance, free Diddy. Like not something that hateful or violent that he said, but something kind of objective.
This is the problem with his argument, is he's kind of conflating two things. It's like, oh, freedom, you can go wherever you want, but also these social media companies are the new public square. I agree with him on the second part, actually. But the issue with this idea of the whole just go to a different social media platform if you don't like what these platforms are doing is social media platforms inherently monopolize, because you want to be on a platform where everyone is, where there's a lot of other people. So naturally, there's not going to be that many platforms because people want to be on platforms with the most amount of other people, so they get largely the most amount of content, so we're not missing out on things. So in that sense, there isn't this just freedom of, and there are other things that pop up. And frankly, I actually don't think that's that amazing of a thing. Of course, I understand the need for things like Mastodon and Blue Sky because Twitter is a fucking Nazi cesspool most of the time. But the problem is when we do that, we're just reinforcing the already present echo chambers where people basically are going into their own corners, screaming whatever thing or what they think and what they agree with, and everyone surrounded by them agrees with them. And we already see this in our current media landscape. But then when that happens and when you only consume media and are around people who affirm what you already believe, you get this false perception and idea that, well, of course, everyone around me thinks that way, when in fact, they don't. So this is not to say that these news and social media sites shouldn't exist. People should have the ability to go to them. But I do think that we should strive to have more equitable guidelines that are enforced on all platforms, because it is important in order for the free exchange of ideas to operate, for ideas to actually be exchanged, differing ideas to actually clash and exchange. And that's just not what's happening largely on social media, because everyone's going to their own separate bubble or separate service in which they're never challenged on their beliefs. Everyone affirms them 100% of the time. And I don't think that's a good thing. So I kind of wanted to push back against that.
Actionable, but if let's say somebody's holding up a picket sign in New York in Times Square saying free Diddy, I don't want the police to come over and arrest them for that. Just like I don't want Kanye to be banned off Twitter for saying free Diddy unless it gets to the I
don't know, bro. This dude seems to really, really want Diddy to be free. What is just the example?
Now, right now, the public, those platforms aren't really treated like public squares. In my opinion,
Correct.
is that they should. But I also understand that there's a business decision to that. Some places might not want to advertise. So
Sure, they're protected under Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, I believe. Basically, it protects them as both a publisher and a platform, which in certain senses you can understand as being unfair, because what it basically means is that they both do not have a responsibility to moderate any of the content, or they cannot be held liable for things that they publish. So for example, if someone publishes something defamatory on Twitter, Twitter is not held accountable for the defamatory action. However, a newspaper can be held accountable for the defamatory action because they consciously are publishing it, and thus they can be held accountable. So usually what we see is we see one or the other. Either you're an open platform or you have editorial control. So, and newspapers have that editorial control. They're not an open platform, so they can be held accountable. The problem with a lot of social media platforms is they have both. Is they are considered an open platform, so they're immune from liability for disinformation and allowing that stuff to spread. But yet they also have editorial control to ban things and set their community guidelines or terms of service. So what that leads to is them bearing no responsibility for ensuring that defamatory or hateful content doesn't get spread, but also they do have the ability to ban people as they see fit, but it's not in line with the laws that we see. So a way to kind of solve this problem, or not fully solve it, but address it, is to basically say, look, you don't have this type of editorial control anymore. Okay, you basically just give them an ultimatum. You say either you have editorial control or you're protected as an open platform. What I think would largely happen is these companies don't want to have editorial control. They don't want to, of course not. Twitter doesn't want to, or other companies don't have to go through every single tweet and ensure that they follow certain guidelines. What that would end up meaning is if we revoked that section of it, that they would just be protected as a platform. And if they're just protected as a platform, the same way that the First Amendment is a platform, then it would be the First Amendment that would apply on these platforms, which I don't think is a terrible thing, really. You know what I mean? Like, I think that largely, I'm pretty strong on free speech. I'm not a free speech absolutist because the term is contradictory. You can't be a free speech absolutist. There are obviously things. Otherwise, you'd believe that threats to violence and, saying you're going to kill someone and, literally like releasing nuclear codes is a form of free speech, which of course it's not. So, but I lean much more free speech. It really annoys me that kind of saying you believe strongly in free speech has almost become like a dog whistle for the right, which I believe just couldn't be more like false. Free speech is essential to our society. And I do believe that more speech is better than less speech. And I think that these companies, it should really be much more let it fly, and we see that a lot of people would say, oh, that's what's happened with Twitter or X now, when it really just hasn't, because Elon has taken that editorial control that he has granted under Section 230 to ban accounts that he doesn't like. I mean, he was banning X parody accounts. He was banning people he didn't like or posting things he didn't like. So what I think should exist within these platforms is they should no longer have editorial control. It's the First Amendment that governs these platforms. If you're inciting violence, if you're saying something that you can't, then you get banned the same way you'd get thrown in jail or punished with a crime. But they're still open platforms and they aren't held accountable. So that's kind of a way in which we can solve this problem. There's obviously some issues here, but that's largely kind of how I think this issue should primarily be viewed, for sure.
Very thin line. I think where we stand right now, and it's actually really hard to find Kanye's tweets, if I'm being honest, because there's numerous search bans on his account. There's what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a
shadow ban.
Not a shadow ban, but also a content warning on his account, because obviously he's saying really objectionable and strange things. I think that's about as much as you need. Now, if he starts saying, we need to kill this person, we need to kill that person, obviously that gets into the realm of where freedom of speech no longer applies. I think without a shadow of a doubt, that's where we get there. Also, same thing as with material that is illegal, like CSAM, things of that nature. If somebody starts sharing that, obviously that's what needs to be banned. But I'm starting to get to the opinion. I'm very close to being a free speech absolutist, and where I say people should be able to say what they want to say, including more than likely even on most social media platforms, because they're so homogenous with our culture now and how we connect that it's almost like a revocation of civil rights to be banned off of one of them.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, she's going to say I don't go that far. It's not a revocation of civil rights, but it is. I think it was this idea that there's free speech is defined by the First Amendment. And there's free speech in the idea there should be a culture of free speech, that we should promote the civil exchange of ideas, that we shouldn't censor opinions or silence opinions, or because we merely don't like them. And I think that those are generally good practices. And I believe that there should be more conversation and not less, and more ideas that are shared and not less. I don't think it's generally helpful to shun people or strongly shame people for their views. Now, of course, we're talking about Nazis. Like, I get it. There's like a line of society cannot be infinitely tolerant, paradox tolerance, all that. But I do think that, I would rather have these ideas out in the open than be on the corners of 4chan and then the corners of like internet that nobody goes to. I mean, if these ideas are harmful, which they are, and they're like really insidious, I want to know where they are. You know what I mean? It's the idea of like if you're locked in a building with a lion that's trying to eat you or is like dangerous, you're gonna fucking want to know where that lion is, right? Like, so I think in that sense, I want to know what hateful people are saying because I want to know how to combat it effectively. And you can. I think you should be able to individually block people if you choose. I think you should be able to avoid it in that sense. But I think banning people off platforms kind of gets away from this idea of a culture of free speech in which more information and more conversation and more dialogue leads to people better understanding each other, having more accurate view of what the opposing side thinks, and just how that works in general. I think social media has really, and especially in its current form, has really structured and distorted people's views of the other side as being wildly inaccurate than they actually are, because we're just not talking to each other. So, yeah.
So far as to say that I'm a free speech absolutist, but what I will say is that these companies are private corporations. Yeah. And that's my fear, is that our speech shouldn't be dictated by a private entity.
Sure.
If our speech is going to be dictated by any group, it should be the government or the laws. And my fear is that these companies are acting in their own interest and not the interest of the people, because it's private.
Yeah, I'm not even trying to take the pro-censorship. I don't think Kanye should be banned from Twitter forever. I don't think that that's what should happen, but I think there should be some mechanisms on the app of Twitter to disincentivize some of the behavior I see. And you know what? What you just laid out right now, like a slight shadow ban or content warning, that seems pretty fair. If you're going to de-rank Kanye's stuff and be like, maybe you shouldn't post Nazi propaganda, I think that's fair. I wouldn't call myself a free speech absolutist. I do think that there's a line you can walk. But does it bother you guys when Elon Musk bans people on Twitter for other reasons? Do you guys remember the H-1B visa controversy that happened? Elon Musk was banning accounts that were disagreeing with him.
Yes,
that bothers you as well?
Yes, and yes, it does bother me as well. And the funny thing is that as the more MAGA person, that was, and I'm not going to say that I was on board with that, but it was more people that were in my sect of thought that were embracing that. And suddenly, like, these are, sometimes friends of mine, people I know, that were having their verification checks swiped away, which is kind of more like, okay, well, that's not so much of a
Elon
thing.
abusing
Even if they
his
paid
power.
for it. Well, it's kind of like, if the CEO of McDonald's says, hey, you can't order this burger, you can only order these items, like, that's just kind of like what it is, but we're still...
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if it's discrimination, it's discrimination. I mean, obviously the CEO of McDonald's shouldn't be able to walk in and say, because you're black, you can't order this burger. That's discrimination. I'm not saying that that's equivalent, but I'm just saying that there can still be, someone can do something wrong and still have the right to do it, I guess is kind of what I'm saying. Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Serving you in a way. Elon can remove the verification check and stop paying you, the creator, whatever, to an extent, as long as that's in no violation of any contract or any payment service. But and in my point, and I want to clarify, I'm not a free speech absolutist. I'm just really close to it. And my opinion is that platforms this large should no longer have the protections that shield them from having to treat these platforms of speech not as public squares.
I would agree with that.
You get where I'm coming from when I just say some of this behavior should be disincentivized in very slight ways, even if it's just a slap on the wrist, even if you're just content banning them or shadow banning them or whatever.
In their business interest, yes, but in the interest of people being able to see it per se, not really. I think the majority of people that see that content are like, okay, this is objectionable, and that's just where it stands.
But there's kids on there.
There are, well, that's the thing. There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. The platform should mandate 13 or older to be on there, and I think maybe that even gets raised. I don't know, whatever it may be. There definitely should not be kids on X or Instagram or probably even TikTok.
Or Snapchat. Honestly, get them off.
Get them out of here.
So is it fair to say that Elon Musk is being kind of inconsistent with his moderation and does it for reasons that benefit himself? So here's the thing.
I don't want to equivocate Elon Musk zapping some people that said some not great things about H-1B visas, and Kanye West saying he loves Hitler.
No one's making that.
It's not really
that
on the
comparison.
level whatsoever.
Elon Musk has shown this pattern of every time he gets in some personal squabble or beef. I'm pretty sure he shadow banned Grimes a few weeks back because Grimes was saying something. It was something like to that effect. It seems like he uses Twitter for his own self-serving reasons, and then I do see a lot of Nazi stuff on Twitter, and it's not because of what I look up. I swear to you guys, I just scroll through my Twitter feed, and there's random video.
The algorithms know what you like and know what you dislike.
But to Adam's point, if you are going to continue to have someone who is so extreme as Kanye West be allowed to exercise their right to free speech, then that should extend to everyone.
I do agree with that.
And I mean, my stance on this is what you guys have already said. It's simply just free speech. I condemn, obviously, Nazis and everything that comes with that, but it's like he has, because of the country we live in, he has the right to post that stuff as long as it's not inciting violence.
Not currently.
Or
I mean, the First Amendment doesn't currently apply to online speech. I agree that it should, but not currently.
People, or I think it's defamation is another way that your First Amendment right can be revoked. But same thing, how Elon Musk kind of picks and chooses. We've been seeing that on Instagram for years. I mean, I've had individuals that, for posting something about pro-life, their complete profile was
my
banned.
Instagram got deleted because Instagram got deleted because of Aiden Ross. Me and him got in a beef, and he told all of his fans to mass report me, and they deleted my Instagram.
Mass reports
I feel that.
crazy.
Yeah,
and that
my
shows
previous
you, like,
TikTok
those platforms, even
account got
TikTok
banned.
is almost
Oh, yeah.
insane. Like, I know that they ban liberal creators quite a lot as
Yup.
well, even if they're just live streaming or just
That
making
happened to
videos.
me.
Like, they operate in such a way that it's almost like they only want you Americans watching dumb cat videos. But if you start talking about, okay, well, here's how we can make America great again, or here's how we can build back better, I don't know, whatever liberal slogan y'all have.
Middle ground, that's what we call it.
Yeah, whatever it might be. They're like, okay, well, that's gone. And I feel like that's not right.
Well, I think my point too is, like, regardless of if it's Elon Musk, whoever it is, there's always going to be some type of favoring their beliefs.
And
but that's
obviously
why
that's not
when
right.
it's a private company like that, I
they
don't
can
want
do that.
them to
But I
have.
also don't know if there's any way to have.
Well,
I think that there
There
should
is.
be. I do think that there is an issue with children on these apps, and children do kind of complicate it because they, like, all of us have our own beliefs that I'm hoping are based in, our own thought and reason and personal experiences as mature adults. But, kids don't have the luxury of having those experiences.
Yeah.
And it does scare me that accounts like Kanye's can be seen by kids. So do you guys think that there's maybe a way to limit that speech aimed at children? Like, I guess, how do we do it in a way that's protecting
they
kids'
just
rights
ban-
to innocence?
If you're under a certain age, you have to go through some kind of verification process.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing, which it's a little, I know it's not everybody believes in it, but I believe the same thing with pornography. I mean, it's so easy for young kids to access, and even being on a platform like X, I'm sure you can find a whole bunch of stuff. I don't have X,
Kanye was
but I'm sure
posting
there's
that
a whole
shit.
bunch of stuff kids can find.
Well,
that-
Kanye West himself was posting porn, and it's
Yeah.
funny because I believe
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, oh my God, he went crazy. with
It was like,
I
why?
think it was like 40 videos.
Yeah. Oh,
that
I didn't know
was the
that.
moment. It's gonna be strange to say, but that was the moment where I was finally like, okay, I can't even read this anymore. Because
See, that kind of like changes things a little
That
bit.
does.
Chandler was sitting there
actually
saving all the
change
videos, like, this is too far.
No. No. And back to the point on Twitter real quick. That Twitter should have a mechanism to restrict children being there. They already do. You can't make an account if you set your birthday under 13. But
yeah.
of course,
Yeah, but
you
you
know,
can't
every
I
kid.
lied.
I used to always set my birthday as 1996. I was like, whatever it may be.
I'm still 12 years old.
Yeah. So it might be more of like, maybe we get to the point, and it's funny that you mentioned the Pornhub thing. Some states actually require that you submit your ID, and some people don't want to do that for Pornhub, but I think if we get to the point on Twitter or things of that nature, maybe we get to the point where these platforms require you to submit a driver's license of some sort to identify yourself. But then that gets more into the realm of, well, then what happens to anonymity and how, the privacy concerns. It's kind of like, we have to play this game where, have you ever seen that meme where it's the guy and it's two buttons and you're sweating and you don't know which one to click, and you don't know, okay, privacy or protecting the children, which one do we pick? It's kind of like, what do we value
I would've
more?
said children, yeah.
I might actually have to disagree and say privacy, because here's the thing. Parents need to be involved in their children's lives. Parents need to be mandating what their children have access to. And if you're leaving your child with unfettered internet access, what are they going to find? Live leak? Nobody wants that to happen. That's what used to happen. It's not as big anymore, but these problems can still persist. But that's only if our parents aren't doing their jobs.
I do feel like
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the porn example, I mean, there have been various states that have proposed you have to submit an ID in order to get on Pornhub. There's various reasons why this is a terrible idea. One of them is it just drives people to worse sites, just more underground sites that will fly under the radar instead of Pornhub. I'm not saying Pornhub is great, but compared to the other vile shit that's out there, Pornhub can actually be pretty mild. So, and just in general, I get it. I get we have a desire to keep kids off the apps, but I am kind of sympathetic to Chandler there. That is a parental thing. That is a parental concern, and that's like parents need to be stopping their kids from doing that stuff. I know that they ideally won't, and I don't want to place everything on parental responsibility because that's assuming that everyone has competent parents who are looking out for them in that way. But I also think that, yeah, I don't know. I don't think you should have to submit a driver's license in order to watch porn. Like, which is, no, that's not really how that works. You should not have to submit a license. I think we get very quickly into, what if the government started, that if you submit a license and then they start scraping your data and finding out which porn you watch, and they could, they could persecute people who watch certain kinds of porn. You know what I mean? So I'm skeptical. I think there are ways to go about it that don't involve that. A lot of it's just educating kids. I mean, interestingly enough, in the last Jubilee video, the video that I was in, it was should men watch porn, and one of it was just, kids need to be more educated on this stuff. A lot of this just comes down fundamentally to education. We can't just ban kids from the internet. We can't just ban kids from the online world. They're going to find it. So the best thing we can do is inform them as much as we can about the dangers of social media, what happens on social media, how social media is not real, how it's contrived, how it's designed to bait you and keep you addicted. And I think that's the most effective way to, really help people in this regard. So, yeah.
Parents of children in our generation and a little bit above and below have this unique disadvantage of not having grown up with this technology. Like, I think that we as parents are going to be much more protective and diligent of what our kids have access to on the internet. But my parents didn't know what the fuck Snapchat was.
Oh, yeah.
So they were
they worked in the kick trenches.
Yeah, they're at a disadvantage. They don't know how dangerous it can be. So I think just generally we all agree that free speech is important and that private companies should not have a role in who gets to speak and who doesn't on these public forums. But it is important that we have safety measures in place to protect children from seeing offensive and dangerous content.
Experts reveal the obvious reasons why young people are having less sex than previous generations. Is it healthy that younger generations are having less sex than older generations?
Good luck, y'all.
3, 2, 1.
Shocker.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's a blessing. I mean, I think our generation is bringing sex back towards what it was intended for.
Oh, here we go.
And I do think part of that reason is our generation is chasing after something that's going to fulfill them, that's going to fill their depressions, their sorrows.
What are they chasing?
Their loneliness. We've turned to drugs, we've turned to alcohol. I think in most recent years it's been turning towards sex and hypersexualization. And ultimately, I think that's leaving us empty. And my opinion on this is I truly think it's us searching for that ultimate joy. And, for me, Jesus Christ is that ultimate joy.
There we go.
He saved me from a whole bunch of things.
I'm sure
I've
he
tried
did.
all that stuff. It doesn't work. It leaves you empty. And he's
Maybe you're
the only
just
joy in my
bad at
life.
it. Maybe you're just bad at having sex, Luke. Did you think about that? That does not surprise me. I don't know. I just don't have that much tolerance for people who base their worldview on this stuff and then try to dictate what other people live or how society should be run. Okay, sounds good. I'm just checked out at this point.
Brought that consistent happiness, and I think maybe our generation is kind of waking up to that. I know we're seeing a huge revival within the Christian community, and I think we're kind of getting past that whole aspect of meaningless sex, because you hook up with somebody and then you're just left there and it's like, hey, what next? You're just left empty.
I mean, it depends on the person. This is the problem with these kind of Christians and these individuals is they take their individual circumstances and they universalize them. Oh, I didn't enjoy casual sex, or oh, I never got to engage in that, therefore it's bad for everyone. It's not really. It's a lot of this stuff and a lot of this harm that people experience is this type of moral incongruence, this idea that they enjoy watching porn, enjoy having sex, but their faith is telling them that they're sinning and that they're, need to be, redeemed for that, or they need to confess to their sins. That's what's causing the harm here. Now, I'm not saying that sex is not inherently harmful, or not. I am saying that sex is not inherently harmful. I'm not saying that sex can't have harmful consequences and that can't lead to issues of people who are using it as a form of intimacy and not really connecting with people. However, I don't know. Hookup culture works for some people. It really has not worked for me. It really, but I think people are too vast and diverse and different to kind of do a one size fits all solution here. So as I'll talk about in a little bit, I think there's some reasons why young people aren't having sex that go beyond just sex and are really just interaction and people not interacting. But let's let them make that point.
So my question is, are younger people having less sex, or are they in relationships less? Because my fear is that younger people are having less sex because they're less social.
Yep.
And I think that my concern is that, I don't know. I often feel kind of jealous of my parents for growing up before the age of the internet, where, the only mechanism of social interaction was to see each other in person. So there were more outlets for people to really hang out and be together in person. And my fear is that social media has kind of taken over our ability to socialize in person, and that's why people are having less sex. And it's not because they're valuing sex more, but because they're just not hanging out with each other.
I agree. It's not about values. I think the way you framed it as if it's a good thing that people are intentionally doing, but I do think it's downstream from just less socialization in general due to social media, due to the advent of iPhones being in everyone's hand. But also, I think that was exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. I don't know about you guys, but during the COVID pandemic, I started to spend a lot of time alone. I had to intentionally start hanging out with people after the pandemic and kind of remove this bubble that I put around myself and get back out there. There's a reality where a lot of young people in their formative years, like our age, they're addicted to social media. The pandemic hits, they kind of just turn more introverted, and then they never actually rebound and have more sex. That could be a reason.
That's how I originally got on TikTok, was in that time. And so, interesting times for sure. You turn to the internet when you can't go anywhere else.
And the reason why I think that young people having less sex is bad is because, number one, it's less socialization. But number two, when you look at other countries across the globe, the happiest countries out there tend to have a higher freedom index in a way. So if you look at the Middle Eastern countries where women are oppressed in many different ways, the happiness there isn't really that high. And I'm not saying that America should be like a complete, like we're all just running around naked or whatever, but I mean, I'm just like...
That'd be pretty great. Can we do that?
If there is a correlation between the freedom that one person has to have sex or do what they want or express themselves and happiness, I want to maximize happiness. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are kind of a...
You can't say happiness without penis.
One of the happiest...
Sorry, we're talking about sex, and I've been recording for like 2 hours and over 2.5 hours. So how much we got? 15 more minutes here, which will probably be like an hour more, frankly, if I keep yapping. But let's continue.
Happiness as far as like personal joy, one of the happiest countries is Africa, some of the countries in Africa. And they have a very traditional view on sex.
Which countries?
Well, like there's countries, Ghana, they view this from a traditional aspect. And I've never been there, but I know people that have gone on like mission trips and served.
They're also just much less materialistic. You know what I mean? Like I think that when people don't have certain resources, either one, they don't know what they're missing out on, which is fine. I'm not saying that, they should have those things or that they're lacking like inherently because they don't. But I do think that, I don't know, if you're just less materialistic in general, if you're not on technology as much, it would make sense that maybe you're happier, because it's really easy to fall into a rabbit hole where things are terrible and awful. And so, that doesn't surprise me. But I don't know if it's because they're having less sex or more traditional. It's just a bunch of different factors.
People are some of the happiest people that we've ever seen.
Yeah, but we're America, man. We've got the strongest economy.
No, I know, but I don't think
Ghana?
Like sex equals happiness.
Well, you want us to be more like Ghana?
I don't think that sex equals
Yeah, but we're like America, man. I couldn't tell if Adam was being ironic for a second or not.
happiness either. But my fear is not that people are less happy because they're not having sex. My fear is that people are less happy because they're not getting out more.
Yeah.
And I think that
no.
the amount of sex people are having is innately correlated to how much they're just interacting socially in general. Because how many of your social interactions are going to lead to sex? Probably not a lot.
All of mine. Everyone wants to have sex with me. I'm kidding. I don't know. I sometimes have to remember I have to post this video. So, I'm just going to play the video. I don't know why I did that.
So the amount of, not events.
Getting a little tired,
but just,
guys.
in general,
Afternoon.
So if people are going
Afternoon.
out less and they're having sex
Tiredness.
less, I'm just concerned that younger kids aren't having as many social experiences.
That's the concern. And I wasn't saying that sex directly leads to happiness, more sex. I was just saying broadly, when a society is more free, or they allow people to express themselves in certain ways, or they're very social, and there's a very cohesive society where people are hanging out a lot, they're more happy as a society in general.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys have hit on a few great points, and I have my bubble green for similar-ish reasons to you, although completely secular. I just think logically speaking, society functions better when there's a lot more monogamy and a lot less hookup culture. But I don't really get into all that. What I want to get into actually is the birth rate. And that's something I really value. A lot of Western first world countries are suffering from a fertility crisis. In America, for instance, in 1960, the average woman had 3 babies. In the 70s, after the big boom of feminism and also various other economic crises.
Thank you for
that
pointing out economics.
That
Jesus
dropped
Christ.
to, I think, 1.62.
Okay.
It started to go back up as we got into the 2000s, and by 2007, it was back up to 2 births per woman. After the financial crisis of 2008, that dropped right back down to 1.5 or so, and it's been hovering around that ever since.
Okay, so you seem to have very clearly laid out the issue and have framed it around economics. Now let's hope that you get the correct conclusion, which is economic factors and not feminism. But I actually don't remember what he says on this.
I think we get to the point where we need to focus a lot more on replacing, because every child has to replace the population you have in your country. That number of births per woman has to be 2, because it takes 2 people to create 1 child. So every woman needs to be having somewhere around 2 babies. Obviously, some women can have more, some women can have less. But I think we need to get to the point where we are able to maintain our population. And in order to do that, we need to solve this problem that you guys are mentioning very greatly, that there are people that aren't getting out, there are people that aren't connecting, and there are people that aren't fostering.
So I'm confused. His bubble is blue because he agrees with a lot of what the other guy said, but for secular reasons. Do you think like people having sex more leads to a lower birth rate? I just don't think that's the case at all. Like I don't. It's an economic thing. People feel they can't raise children. People can't raise children feasibly in our society. So it's not that surprising.
Relationships that would then build homes and families. I think that's a serious problem that we need to address. And I think there are numerous routes, but I think definitely getting people outside and connected is very important.
In addition to that, I think not only what you were talking about, but also, helping educate our generation on the value of sex. Because I think if you bring people together in more community, if they have more sex without understanding, in my opinion, what's it intended for.
Yeah, no, not what's it intended for. Educate them what it is. Don't tell them what it should be intended for. I don't know. No, it's not. Sex is between a man and a woman in a healthy relationship, or not healthy, in a marriage that is blessed by God. Like, no. Abstinence only doesn't work. Telling them not to have sex doesn't work. Trying to scare them into thinking that sex is super important when they're horny and curious doesn't stop this. Educate them about what sex is. Don't try to impose upon them this restrictive view of how you think it ought to function.
With how we're seeing abortion in this country, that interaction that you're seeing, which leads to more sex, can also lead to more babies that aren't wanted and end up killed. And so I think it's a mix of getting community together more, but also helping people understand what comes with sex, and increasing sexual education within our youth.
Okay, good,
understanding when 2 people come together and things happen, there's a risk of things happening, and helping them understand that, where I think things have become a little reckless, and people don't always understand what may happen, the effects of some of their, the consequences of some of their actions. But I do think technology has been huge, and I think that's something we kind of all agree on, is trying to find something to bridge that distance of communication.
We want kids to be more social and practice healthy sexual habits.
Yes.
That's fair. I agree.
We hope that the next generation can learn to do that.
Yes.
Cool.
We hope there is one. On Love is Blind Season 8, political differences take center stage. Would you date someone with opposing political views? 3, 2, 1.
Wow, look at that.
Interesting.
You guys make the argument first. Why wouldn't you, Chandler?
Well, political views is something that's very important to me. I have been doing political commentary for now 6 years, so it's kind of...
My light would be red. Maybe I should have done that for like all the prompts, to say like how my light would be, but I feel like you guys will pick up on that based on how I'm articulating. But maybe for this one, no, I would not.
Like a core principle, not because I make politics my personality, but because it's part of like my career. So I speak about politics, I make content about it, I work with political organizations, and for those reasons, I've found that, for instance, for when I'm a straight male, I found that women, particularly my age, that disagree with me politically, really do so vehemently. I've struggled to run into any moderate liberal women per se, and I've struggled to run into any that aren't like Naima. This is going to sound really Naima.
That's not my name. There you go.
Naima, I'm sorry. It's going to sound really rude, but so many of them are like very aggressive. And I found that I don't think that would be a match that could work, because the thing is,
I'm like wondering what situations you're running into these people. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. What are you walking up to them being like, "Hi, I don't think you should have a right to abortion." Like, yeah, you might get sucker punched or like cursed out. Like, I just like, what do you? I don't know. Like, it's just, I'll let him continue.
I look for in a partner wouldn't mesh well with somebody that could disagree with me on such a deep level about basically everything.
Yeah.
Well, while I disagree with the blanket generalization of labeling liberal women as aggressive, I do think that, especially for us as people who are very engaged in politics, my political views are very much enmeshed with my core values. And I think it would be very hard for me to date someone whose values don't align with my values. I think that would just be a recipe for disaster. And
Correct.
also, I love my boyfriend.
Yeah, now you guys are making me rethink, because now it seems like I don't have strong core values that I would like want to project onto someone else.
That's not what I said.
No.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I've met conservative girls, conservative women,
Right.
who I have good banter with. We
Yeah.
disagree, we have good banter, and it's sort of like I can save them. I can
Yeah, that's
convert them a little bit. Now,
this is
I
the
would never date
problematic
someone
stuff.
who's like Kanye West tweeting, obviously. But if I meet someone and they're a little bit confused on the Ukraine war, and they're like, "Oh, we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars over there," I'm not gonna like push this person away because
Luke is still confused because he has no fucking idea what's going on. So maybe you should date Luke and fix him.
of that. I'll talk to them about it. So would I write someone off if I learned they were slightly conservative? No, I would date a slightly conservative woman. But ideally, I'd date someone who's aligned with me. Ideally.
Right. And the bigger question,
I want to get into that a little bit because I think that's actually pretty problematic. I don't like the word problematic because it makes it sound like I'm being pedantic. But I do think this idea of like, I can save her is like the idea. Or like, why would you want to date someone who just like doesn't really know what's going on and kind of just like kind of goes with the whim or like something like that? Like, I don't want to date someone who I feel I have to educate on things. Like, obviously I'm going to provide my perspective, but like, I don't know. And this is basically something for me. Is like, I really value someone who's very intellectual, someone who is a deep thinker, someone who, someone doesn't need to see the same world the same way as I do, although I think if you see the world in a particularly different way, intelligence is off the table. However, I want someone who challenges me. I want someone who doesn't think exactly like me. I want someone who's smarter than me. However, like, a lot of MAGA is just, it's anti-intellectual. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, the two things do not mesh. So I know I would not date someone like that. I don't know. I've said this before, but I'll say it now. Like, this is why I don't like the word politics. You know what I mean? Because it's so broad in what it means. So this idea of like, oh, why did you break up over politics? It's like, politics covers the statement of, I think the tax brackets should be slightly higher on rich people. And it also includes the statement that climate change is real, or that gay people should be able to get married. And the fact of the matter is, those are just so fundamentally different statements. Could I date someone who disagrees with me a bit on economic policy or thinks that we should take a slightly different approach in certain foreign policy matters? Sure. I'm not going to date someone who doesn't think that gay people should have rights, or that women should have bodily autonomy, or that people should be able to live their lives free of discrimination. Like that's why would I waste my time, really? So I don't know. Like, I think you should surround yourself with people who think differently than you do, and even some people who might have opposing political views? Sure. But if you're building a life with someone and you're building a family, I do think that it is a partnership. You're building that together. And I think it's really important that you do have those shared values. I want someone who I feel understands me, who understands where I'm coming from and understands me charitably. And I don't think I would get that on the other side. And it's just, these are core moral values that people hold, and I would not be able to do that with someone on that side. So that's kind of how I would answer the question. But I think Adam's whole thing of I want to save her, like I want to educate her, it's just kind of infantilizing. You know what I mean? Like, do you want someone who's like less smart than you are so that you can kind of, be the big smart guy who's just protecting her and telling her everything she needs to know? It's like, just kind of weird. You know what I mean? Date someone on your level, Adam. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a problem with men dating down because they don't want to be intimidated by a woman who, God forbid, might be as smart or smarter than him. Like, it's just, ugh, I don't know.
And this might flip you as well. Would your end goal be to, because you said confused and kind of framed it in a way in which she's, in this scenario, less informed and doesn't quite fully understand things. Would your end goal be to sharpen her up to basically matching your political view?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many 22-year-old women I've met who don't really have strong political views, but they just have this vague idea. And then you talk to them and they start to agree.
Yeah.
My goal is not to actually convert somebody to a liberal, but I think broadly, if I met someone who I really, really liked and we had good banter and I found out that they were slightly more conservative, that wouldn't make me push them away.
As a Christian, I look for a partner who is also Christian. The Bible talks a lot about what is described as being evenly yoked. The yoke was like this wooden collar that they attached to two oxen when they were plowing the fields. And if one oxen was faster, slower, bigger, smaller, it would be uneven and they wouldn't be able to get the job done. And so the Lord kind of describes that into finding a partner, find someone with your same beliefs.
All right.
And the reason why I couldn't necessarily date a liberal woman, and this is a pretty hot point, is I personally don't believe that you can call yourself a Christian and a liberal.
Oh, okay.
I think it's an oxymoron. I think the liberal value of frankly murdering babies is in opposition of a God that created us, knit us in our mother's womb, made us fearfully.
I mean, I strongly dislike religion, so I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when people like him paint religion in this awful light, part of me is like, go for it. You're just burning down the movement with you. I do not like religion. I think organized religion is one of the worst things that's ever happened to society. So if organized religion wants to die with these people and their outdated opinions, by all means, go for it. Do I think it's an oxymoron to be a Christian and a liberal? No, I don't know if this is the conversation to really get into all of my thoughts on religion, because that's might be for a separate video. But I think people who think like him are just, no, like I don't agree with his literal statement, and I also just I don't, dude. I just live your life. I wouldn't. I hope you don't. I hope you're not in a relationship. I think he said he was single. Like, so, put this on your dating profile, my guy. Make sure to link this video to any woman you ever want to be with.
Wonderfully, and I think also their stances on certain issues like transgenderism goes against the whole ideal of the Lord made us perfectly as we are. And
that's not true. They didn't. If that's the case, then why do we need to take chemotherapy? Why do we need any sort of medical regimens? Because God made us perfect. We can't alter our bodies in any way. It's fucking bullshit. It's not true. That's just not. God didn't make us perfect. He made us so imperfect. Actually, he didn't make us. He didn't make us at all. Our imperfection is because of natural selection and evolution and evolutionary pressures leading us to be fundamentally imperfect. It's not God. God didn't make us perfect because we're not perfect. So I don't. It's just all based on a lie. I've become less and less tolerant of the bullshit of religion over the years. Like I just can't fucking deal with it.
My opinion. So I think not necessarily if I wasn't a believer, if I wasn't a Christian, I think I would be more open to it. But it's just hard.
But since I have this rigid moral framework that shuts out anyone who, might challenge me to think differently, I can't do it.
For me to, I guess, be grounded with the fact that I don't believe that you can be a Christian and a liberal. Okay. I'm sure I'm going to have my moment of being canceled for that, but...
Oh, canceled. Oh, guys, don't cancel me. Don't cancel me for saying that. Guys, no one gives a fuck, Luke. Okay, is anyone surprised hearing him say that after all the shit he said before? No! I would expect that same type of ignorance coming from someone who just genuinely has no grasp of foreign affairs, domestic affairs, any affairs, and will probably end up having an affair. Like, I don't have anything else to say on that.
It's just my opinion.
So can I ask who's murdering babies?
And by the way,
Murdering babies.
I don't know if this is our
we
prompt.
don't just murder them, we eat
No.
them too, by the way.
boy.
But really
There
quickly,
you go,
Chandler,
Adam.
can I ask
Yeah.
you a question? Sorry to sidestep, but can I ask a question?
You're
this morning?
saving his ass, but
Yeah, so-
yes. What's the
No,
question?
I guess this applies to Chandler or all of you. Say you meet a girl or a dude, doesn't matter. I know you have a boyfriend, but I mean, like, say you meet someone, I'm just saying, you meet someone hypothetically, and you hit it off with them super hard. You guys hang out for like a week, super solid chemistry, they're a really solid person, and then you find out you just slightly disagree with them. They're not even like a huge liberal, raging liberal, but they're just like a centrist who happened to vote for Biden and Kamala because their parents did. Would you write this person off if, as I just laid out?
Absolutely, I would not. I would not, and I think that's categorically different than what the question's asking. Because the question isn't, is this just somebody that's either uninformed or somebody that's just following what people around them do? Because if you're disqualifying that, you're never going to make it. You're not going to make it. But if you're willing to be open to somebody that's just like, oh well, because I've gone through this before. Somebody that was just like, hey, I don't really know anything about this. I just voted for what my parents said, and they said that they didn't really know what was going on either. They just said,
Maybe I just have high standards. I'm not sure. I'm not interested in that person. Like, I'm sorry. I know there's a large portion of the American electorate who is uninformed and doesn't really care about politics. That's just not for me. Okay, I want someone who has a vested interest in the future of this country and actually gives a fuck. So, like, no, I'm not gonna, if someone, like, is like, yeah, I don't really know. Like, I don't really know how I feel about the political stand. Motherfucker, if that's what you think, that's fine. Go be with someone who's equally, like, ambivalent or uninformed or apathetic about things. Like, I don't care. That's not my thing. Okay, and I'm not trying to save someone. I'm not trying to educate someone. I don't want to be the hero in someone's story who's just like going to change them completely. That's like weird. Like I want us to realize how kind of strange that is, that Adam wants to kind of morph this person. It almost seems into this person who kind of holds his ideology. Like, oh, I can see you don't know about this? Let me tell you. Let me explain how complicated the world is to your woman brain. That's like what it sounds like. And it's just, ugh, no. Find your equal. Find someone who's your partner, not someone who you can educate and morph into your perfect person.
oh, it's the pandemic, I hate Trump, whatever they voted for. But if they, a lot of the times, particularly, I have some anecdotal experience with this, I'll talk to somebody and you don't really bring up the political buzz points. You just start talking about, as Luce mentioned.
I do right away.
He's like, are you murdering babies?
I
Yes,
find
right.
out if they're pro-life,
core
if they're
value
Christian,
points.
or-
So
There you go. Good job. Well, I'm glad Luke isn't trying to trick liberal women. I mean, it makes sense, but glad you'll find someone with equally heinous beliefs as you to marry.
for instance,
Are
I'm
you
not,
single?
and I'm, oh,
Kind of.
Kind of. What the fuck does kind of mean? So what is this view of Chandler? Chandler going crazy, bro. Like, what?
kinda,
Complicated.
kinda is that
Complicated.
encapsulates everything going on right now.
I'm talking to this girl, but I just can't convince her that she shouldn't have bodily autonomy. So like we're at a limbo. Like
We are so polarized as a society and as a culture that it's almost like two sides and there's barely any room to be in between. And I don't even know if this is necessarily a bad thing or not, because it's more of a symptom of a deeper issue of how far apart we're spreading on various really important issues. For instance, like LGBT identity and abortion and things of that nature that are really core to who you are as a person. These are important decisions that you don't really make just by signing up for a party. You make these decisions by how you think. You make these decisions.
I don't think so. I disagree with that. People make those decisions by signing up for a party all the time. People don't come to individual conclusions on issues. They accept a package of beliefs that they've been given, and that informs them for the rest of their life. I think most people aren't against abortion, or most people aren't Republican because they're against abortion. They're against abortion because they're Republican, and potentially the other way around, potentially vice, or the same for Democrats or people on the left. This is why you can predict someone's view on, for example, gun control or gun rights based on their position on abortion pretty reliably. It's because we accept this cobweb, this package of beliefs. So kind of that's why, is because it's an entire worldview thing. It's not just like everyone kind of is shopping for beliefs and they just see what sounds best. Like that's why we don't see that many people who consider them Democrats who are against abortion. Now, granted, there's like fucking Democrats for Life or whatever fucking organization they are, but I don't. It's not. Beliefs don't inform your politics. Politics inform your beliefs. I mean, they can. I'm being overgeneralizing right now, and frankly, I'm. What do we have? Like 5 more minutes in this video. I'll get through it, guys. I will, but Ugh, the late afternoon is really hitting me. But yeah, this is not this idea that like our beliefs fundamentally inform which political party which our political party we identify with, and our partisanship and how we were raised inform our beliefs. So yeah.
By somebody says to you, hey, this person thinks that they can change their gender, but they want to compete against these group of people in sports. Okay, well that's a thing. How do you feel about that? The girl says, oh well, I think that's just fine. They should be able to do that. Okay,
Right.
You stay over there.
That's disqualifying that in and of itself.
well,
Somebody being like,
again,
hey.
this is more like an example,
Yeah, I
but
know.
it could be like if these things add up. For instance, if it's somebody
Bro cares about 10 athletes in the NCAA, and he's gonna allow that to stop him from getting pussy. All right, bud. Sorry, you seem really awesome, and I'd love to be in a relationship with you. But the fact that you think that people should just play on whatever sports team is best suited for them means that I don't. Okay, Chandler, you're really just shooting yourself in the foot or the dick. But yeah,
Are you single, Chandler?
yes.
I love it. She's just clocking these motherfuckers.
Is this some sort of like, oh well, you're single, I wonder why type of moment?
No. Continue.
Okay, are you single?
I am, yeah.
I'm just gauging the room. I just want to see where we're at with this.
Yeah, but
Well,
if
also,
we're
I have
going
a
there, I
different
mean,
intention in
yeah.
my relationship. So my end goal in a relationship is to find a partner so that I can eventually have a family and provide for that family and raise children up as the Lord has called us to do.
That's my intention as well. What are your intentions?
I just want to
Lord,
date MAGA
let's
girls
go.
and turn them liberal.
I respect the
I mean,
hustle.
going back to that's why
There we
I
go.
look so deeply at values is because
See, Luke is like not Luke. Sorry, Adam is being like ironic there, but like. That's kind of what he said. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, he didn't say this verbatim, but he basically like, no, like if someone's super uninformed on something, I just want to be able to inform them on it and, tell them all the things. Like, that's fundamentally not your equal. You're dating someone who's intellectually not on your level. And I think that's strange. You can have different strengths. You can have different hobbies. I'm not saying, but like politics isn't a hobby. Politics isn't like kind of an interest like sports is an interest or like nature is an interest. It's more fundamental. I feel like political ignorance is indicative of a sense of privilege. It's indicative of, if you haven't taken the chance to educate yourself on these issues or looked into them further, it's a lack of trying to put yourself in other people's shoes and caring where they come from and their worldview. And it's also a sense of privilege. You haven't had to care about these issues. It hasn't mattered what the laws were on abortion, even if you're a woman, because if you're in like a wealthy family, you've always had the option of, going out of state for that, should that opportunity or should that situation unfortunately come up. So I don't know. I don't think Adam's a bad person, but I'm questioning this idea that this is the right way to go about dating at all.
this this woman that I'm marrying, she's going to be raising kids with me. If we have different value, if she values life differently than I do, that's going to affect in how we raise our kids, and that's going to lead into more road bumps in the marriage, and things can just progress from there.
So we seem to agree on the idea that it's
we all
important to
agree.
date people who have your values and who share your values. And I think that especially when people who are very politically minded, that those political values are part of our values outside of
I think we all agree on that.
Okay, guys, hypothetically, with the current administration, married Deport,
This is so stupid.
JD Vance, Elon Musk, and Donald J. Trump.
I'm not answering this.
Jesus.
Yeah, this is stupid.
I'm not answering
I
this.
didn't write this question, okay?
This is stupid.
Yeah, I'm not answering
like,
this.
This is the epitome of Jubilee just being fucking off their rocker. Like, I'm sorry, like we're playing Deport like it's a game. I'm sorry, like this is what I don't understand. We were talking about deportation earlier of Mahmoud Khalil as like a terrible, inhumane thing that needs to be taken very seriously, and we're just going like, yeah, deport. Like it's just so, I don't know. I don't want to rail on Jubilee too much. I appreciate the opportunity I got to go on their show, but I think that some of these questions are just pretty stupid.
I mean, hypothetically,
The fact that Luke is answering this question is really fucking funny. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't like to accuse people of being, a little on the fruity side. But like, I'm sorry. Like, if I found out Luke was secretly closeted, that would not surprise me whatsoever at all. Like, and the fact that he's like almost, I don't want to prescribe motives onto him. Maybe he's just playing along with the game. But like, Luke, you're talking about fucking a man here. You know what I mean? Like, you're the first person to go. You're the first person to volunteer yourself. Like, I don't know. I don't want nothing wrong with that, dude. Just might want to explore that a little more.
If I was a female,
Oh, if you were a female, because you can put yourself in that mindset. Guess what? You don't have to be a female. Did you know that? You don't have to be a woman to have sex with men, although your book apparently tells you otherwise. If you liberate yourself from the constraints that have been placed upon you by your, you know, fake doctrine, your life might be happier. All I'm saying.
I would probably deport Elon,
Oh,
and I
wow.
would marry Vance, and I'm not saying the rest.
You seemed pretty excited
Yeah, he wants to fuck Trump. That's what I'm saying.
to marry Vance.
Bro, salivate.
Yes,
I'm waiting for my wife, so I can't answer the rest, guys.
That's a rough one.
He'd fuck Trump. Everyone, all these conservatives are fucking submissive to Trump. This is the thing. Conservatives like to consider themselves to be dominant. They are on their fucking knees for that guy. There's no one I've seen fall in line more than Republicans for Donald Trump. They're the most submissive, cowardly motherfuckers. And they like to build up this macho thing. No, you just got steamrolled by Trump and are just like at his beckoning call.
I would like to deport them all.
right?
I think I'd f Elon and then deport him after, so I'd never have to think about that again.
Why would you do it in the first place?
Why would
you
I?
have to.
Yeah, I have to choose one of them.
Oh, okay.
So
And
fucking
then-
You can't do it
weird.
both to him.
I
I
don't like this
thought.
game.
With Trump and JD Vance, impeach, was that one of them? Or
No,
Okay.
deport.
I mean, JD Vance is more physically attractive. I mean, Trump's kind of
Oh
funny, so
my
I'd marry
God.
Trump. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, I think this is a hard one. I'd probably marry JD Vance. He seems like the most easy to get along with. I think I'd deport Trump. I think he just needs to leave. He's gotta go. And then, Elon, I'd F him, but I'd take a very long shower afterwards.
All right.
Oh, I would definitely peg Elon though. He's not,
Jesus
we're going
Christ.
that way.
I think Chandler had the same answer.
Yeah, that's not happening.
After this discussion, guys, what do you think we all agreed on?
Well, I think we all agreed that we love this country. We want to see it prosper. We don't want to see people killed. We respect people's freedom, both of speech and of the
you
pursuit of
don't.
happiness. And we want that respected at every way, shape, and form in every direction.
I just want to point out we have
If you think Khalil should be deported, you don't respect free speech. I'm not going to let you just pass up on that and say that you do. You fundamentally do not. You don't believe in it. Just nope.
people of different political views, and usually when you go online, our ideologies would be tearing each other apart at each other's necks, but when you sit down and talk to people face to face in a democracy, in America, we actually found a decent amount of common ground. I mean, we agreed. Like, when I look Chandler in the eyes, we know that we both care about America. We
Yeah.
both want the best for our country. But if I look up Chandler's Twitter account, I'd probably talk a little bit of shit, so.
Yeah, no, I also do think that we can all agree that it's important to have these discussions in person and not online.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this was like a much more productive conversation than I've had in any interaction online. I mean, we all agree that war is bad. I mean, we all agree that it's not fair to murder someone despite how bad their actions may be to you. We all agree that it's important to have due process. We do all agree
that we hate Putin.
We hate Putin.
Putin's not a good guy. All my homies hate him.
Yeah.
And we also agreed that,
He needs to find Jesus.
no, we didn't all agree on that one. The
Nope.
definitions
Putin
matter.
could use some
I said
Jesus.
he needs to find
Oh, I thought you said we need to.
Oh,
No, Putin could find some Jesus. yes.
Putin could absolutely find some Jesus. And we all agreed that definitions matter. You can't just call Mahmoud Khalil a terrorist when he's not a terrorist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it's important to protect kids from online. Just the whole thing.
Yeah.
Some kids.
Most kids, all kids.
So formal. I need my
here you go,
suit.
Chandler.
It was a nice chat, man.
Yes.
I did enjoy it actually a lot.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
fun.
no,
It was cool.
All right. That was something. Yo, it's my video that's being recommended. One of mine. Okay. All right, let's drag myself up here. Well, that was something. If you can't tell, I'm a bit exhausted. This has been about. Let me just exit out of here, and I'll just do a bit of debrief. I don't have much more to say directly. I kind of think I got most of it out. Sorry, my hair is like a mess. But yeah, so that was something. I was wanting to react to that video for a while. I was going to do it last night, but I was exhausted, and I guess I'm glad I didn't because I did it today, and I'm also exhausted. So last night I would not have made it through. You know, I think kind of one thing that I want to talk about is I guess I'm still glad that these conversations are happening, despite the fact that they are often deeply frustrating, and despite the fact that often people are just operating on objectively false information that is annoying when you see those just going unchecked. It's better that people are talking to each other and not talking to each other. So good on Jubilee for that. You know, I think that more I don't always believe that they are operating in the best faith in terms of, finding middle ground, as I've talked about before. But I do think that the conversation needs to be happening regardless. So that's kind of all I've got to say. Trying to think what else. Thank you guys so much for the support these past few weeks, kind of coming up on a month since the original Jubilee video that I was in was released. So, my platform has grown. I think I'm like 25,000 followers on Instagram, which is crazy. And it keeps going up and up and up. So, feel free to follow me over there. I will leave all of my socials down in the description, Instagram, TikTok. And definitely, follow me over there as I post. I'll definitely chop this up into a lot of shorter form content. So you may be seeing clips from this elsewhere. But if you watched all the way till the end, thanks for sticking around with me. We both got to enjoy this conversation, the good moments and the annoying ones as well. So I don't know much else to say. I'm looking forward to continuing to make these videos. Maybe I need to take an energy drink or drink an energy drink beforehand, or a 5-hour energy or something. It's a 3-hour, but so I guess 5-hour will do it. But it's kind of all I've got. Of course, please leave your comments down below. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on what you thought about this, if you enjoyed this. These live reaction videos are definitely a little bit kind of more sloppy because I kind of just say what comes to mind. So be charitable if you can. If something came out wrong, just understand that I'm just a guy. I'm giving my thoughts. And I'm doing it as well as I can in good faith. So that's kind of all I've got. As I said, of course, like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And definitely hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing more of you on my page, regardless of which platform that may be. So take care. Bye.